everyone, and we have a quorum. So, the first item on the agenda is public comment. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district, and limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Ray, who's first?
We have China Young, I think is her name.
Hi, my name's China Young. I'm a resident of SMD4. I want to thank you, planning commissioners, for being here today and for taking on the incredible task of being a citizen volunteer. It is a thankless position to be in. You take time out of your workday to serve as a steward for our community. And there's a huge weight of responsibility and accountability on your shoulders as a decision maker for all of us. As a fellow resident, I share that responsibility with you, and that's why I'm here, taking time out of my day, sacrificing opportunity to earn income, because it is so incredibly important for all of us as citizens to be engaged in discussions and decisions that will affect our community and our future. Really, the only difference between the two of us is that I only have 3 minutes to speak, and you get to make the decision on whatever you want to make that impacts all of us. So last month, I was here speaking on my concerns about the data center and water use and encouraging this dais to approve the guidelines and regulations that had been constructed by city staff along with many of my citizen colleagues. Since December, when I became aware of a potential data center being built, myself and a small group of concerned citizens have been working hard to learn everything we can about the impact it would have on our community and to work with our council members and city leaders to put those guidelines, into place to protect our community. And although some of us had the initial impulse to say absolutely no to a data center, we began working with each other at the very minimum for the appropriate guidelines to protect our resources, our land, our water, our energy, and our people. The result of that work was the guidelines that were tabled at the last meeting because they were seen as too restrictive. Comments were made about them being too long to read and too complicated to understand, and as just another average citizen, I completely understand, because until the last few months, I would have not understood them either. But I have spent the last several months learning and have been fortunate to have had colleagues along the way that have had more knowledge and understanding and have helped guide me. And I was very disheartened to hear folks on the commission choose to table something because they didn't take the time to understand it. Even after being told that representatives from the data center itself looked at those guidelines and were in agreement with them. While those guidelines may have seemed overly restrictive from the perspective of a small business owner, they weren't anything out of the ordinary for a multi-million-dollar corporation. The size and scope of this project is massive. And if we don't put strict parameters on the use of our resources, they will be exploited and our future generations will suffer for it. So I urge this commission to not be overwhelmed by the length and density of these regulations, but recognize that they are necessary to protect our community and our future. The most important thing we can do, you can do, is get it right the first time so that our community doesn't have to scramble to fix the problems that are created by getting it wrong. Thank you so much.
Thank you, China.
Jeff Fisher.
Good morning, Vice Chair Mice and Planning Commissioners. Jeff Fisher, single member District 4, Paulin neighborhood. I just wanted to give you my thoughts as well on the conditions. First of all, I'd like to say commend staff and the commission, all of you working together on that. I think there's some really good stuff in here. I think there's probably about 70% of what was in there today is kind of what the community was pushing for since the beginning. So I'm not here to say the data center is a good idea or a bad idea, but just to focus on the requirements. I'm going to do that later. But I did have some questions about the Skybox project, and I wanted to use that as part of the time that I have here. The first question to the planning department as well as you all is, will Skybox be subject to these new data center regulations? I think that's really important, with vested rights and getting the straight zoning with the director's interpretation on that. There's concerns about that, of them actually following those guidelines at all, because technically they don't have to. The second thing is, there's been talk about a 380 agreement. We know it's coming. What's in that agreement? And maybe they're not getting a property tax abatement, but are they getting other abatements on their water and sewer and things like that? If that's the case, I would say we should halt on that part of it and have that discussion further and make that information public. There's a lot of businesses that create jobs. There's a lot of businesses that do things. There's a lot of mom and pop businesses in town. So why should this one business, get those tax breaks if they're already going to earn millions of dollars? I think that's a fair question. And then thirdly, are they going to provide any benefits to the citizens of San Angelo? I've done some research in other communities, and again, this is not necessarily my opinion, just things that I've looked at. Amazon in Mississippi had given money for community colleges and schools training programs for computer science and engineering and things like that. Are they making a donation to the community? Virginia invested in data centers there. They were giving $400,000 in community funds. Happy to share those links later to those localities. And then in Illinois, in Elk Grove, their innovation district giving financial assistance to local school districts and other taxing bodies. So I think before, I know later today we're focusing on the conditions, but I wanted to take the time to share that as well. There's a lot of information floating around out there, and I think we just need to make an informed decision. If y'all end up approving these regulations, it's going to set the tone for other data centers to come to town. So what are they giving back, and what are some adequate or appropriate conditions to be placed? Thank you.
Lisa Olivis-Chamont.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I'm Lisa Olivis-Chamont. I'm from District 4, Pauline. I'm respectfully urging the council for a data center moratorium for the city of San Angelo, and for today for the Planning Commission to either table this item again or vote to deny for the reasons below to council. At this point in time, there are more unknowns in regard to the questions of water consumption and grid overload, and how these issues will directly affect citizens of San Angelo. There are stories in newspapers every day of how these data centers are negatively impacting people that live in data center communities. Neighbors and friends have often commented that we are not seeing any stories where the citizens are speaking positively about these data centers in their cities. So how is it that these data centers are the answers to our prayers? Why did the city and Skybox or Emergent embark on this endeavor without presenting their ideas and vision for San Angelo directly to the people of San Angelo way back in March of 2025? Instead, we are given an impromptu Q&A on April 22nd after the land has already been rezoned and leased. The lack of transparency by the city and Skybox Emergent, sorry, I'm nervous, has already been rezoned and leased. The lack of transparency by the city and Skybox Emergent has left us with more questions than answers and has resulted in an air of mistrust among council's constituents. I'm not against progress or economic development. I just wish for our city leaders to negotiate hard to reap the benefits of sensible economic development for all the citizens. That is exactly why this moratorium is imperative at this point in time. Our elected officials and city staff have to make sure they maximize every benefit for San Angelo residents. We hold the winning hand. We have what they want, what all the data centers want: inexpensive land, water, and grid. Fear of missing out seems to be what was driving our elected leaders in the beginning to move quickly and stealthily. Skybox Emergent is pushing hard to maximize profits for their investors, and they want the taxpayer to subsidize their project and assume all the risk with so many unanswered questions. Our elected officials have responsibility to push hard to make sure we receive the best return on our investment, not just for now, but for the future. The Texas GOP-led legislature is already planning to address these issues of data centers when they convene in January of 2027. A moratorium would allow our legislators to ensure guidelines, regulations, and protections for communities like ours. Please see articles, Texas Legislature Sets Its Sights on Data Centers and AI, What You Need to Know, Foley and Lardner LLC, as well as Data Centers, Texas Lawmakers Explore New Regulations from Fox 7 Austin. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I hereby request a moratorium on these data center regulations and any 380 agreement for Skybox Emergent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steph, is it Baca?
Hello, thank you for being here and being our commission, working as hard as you do. As China said, I appreciate it. And I am not against development and moving forward with San Angelo's future and prosperity. But my name is Steph Bach. I live in the ETJ and respectfully would like to make a comment on the data centers and guidelines, just overall generally. Guidelines are defined as information intended to advise people on how something should be done or what should be done. For all intents and purposes, the guidelines, much like OSHA and ANSI standards, are meant to ensure forms of safety with aspects of accountability in order to protect the value of human life over the cost of work and business interest. The fact that these basic protections are a part of industrial work and life is not mere coincidence correlating to hazards and potential death. The standards and safety regulations exist as a barrier and level of protection that people would not otherwise have if left up to businesses themselves. Therefore, here is where I implore you to put the citizens' needs to be protected over monetary gain. It isn't fair for anyone to have to suffer because they don't have the knowledge or understanding of what's coming, meaning they aren't able to be at every council meeting or to keep up with what's going on or to be at every commission meeting to understand the needs of all the city and their neighborhood. That's why we have local government and committees to entrust these officials to do what is best for the people, and that includes their safety. The guidelines, I believe, fall short of this trust. I urge the study of Abilene's situation from housing to tax hikes to rent hikes to utility hikes. It wasn't fair. They didn't know, but we do, and we can see what's happening to them. If a data center is built in or near San Angelo, it must protect our water, our air, our neighborhoods, and operate safely and openly to the public. The citizens should not have to pay for the development of infrastructure or bear the burden of higher rates to accomplish it either. The proposed guidelines should be written to safeguard the community while ensuring any future data center development is responsible, transparent, and accountable. To conclude my comment, I respectfully request a one-year moratorium to fully gather and study the effects that is seen and felt in so many communities around us. It is pertinent to understand all intended and unintended consequences. With data centers rushing into communities so fast, it is undeniable that there have been many regrettable consequences. We want our leadership to be steadfast in the safety and well-being of faithful tax-paying citizens and simply ask to pause for greater contemplation and studies to safeguard the well-being of our present and future generations. I also respectfully request that the data center regulations/guidelines be tabled for further deliberation. Thank you.
Jennifer Dendy?
Good morning, Commission. My name's Jennifer Dendy. I live in District 5, and I am here to request a moratorium just until the end of this year, just to give regular people time to compose their thoughts on this issue. I mean, my husband and I just got our 200-foot letter things last week. So I've spent the weekend watching old meetings, trying to learn what I could about all of this. It feels rushed. It feels like there's a false sense of urgency over building this data center, and it won't be the only one. There'll be more. If this is good for San Angelo today, why won't it be good for San Angelo in December? Let's wait. Give people time to get answers to their questions. And I watch these meetings, and they ask questions, and they never get answers. What is the water usage going to be? Will it be capped? What is the energy usage going to be? Will it be capped? Will the square footage that these people can build in this spot be capped? We haven't gotten answers to any of that, and I don't understand that. And also, these regulations are supposedly going to be enforced through code compliance, and I'm confused by that because this is a multi-million-dollar job. They're not going to care about little several $1,000 fines to fix light problems or noise problems. I think we just need a little more time to think about all these issues. Thank you.
That is it for general public comment.
Thank you, Ray. Okay, next we'll move into the consent agenda. The commission may request for the consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. All items on the consent agenda have been recommended for approval by staff with no opposition received to date. Since some items on the consent agenda may require public hearing, the commission will accept public comment on any item on the consent agenda in one public hearing. Do y'all have any questions or want to pull any of those items? Okay. Ray, do you have any public comment for those?
Only if needed, if there was questions.
Okay. I don't have any questions, so can we have a motion?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes 6-0. I had to count there for a second. Okay, next we'll move into the regular agenda. The first item on the regular agenda is sign variances. Planning Commission has final authority for approval of sign variances. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. We have the first case, which is SV 26-01, 4083 West Loop 306, Single Member District Number 6, a request for a sign variance to Section 12.04.005 to allow a second freestanding sign fronting West Loop 306 frontage.
Good morning, Ray Lineberry, lead planner. So this is a sign variance request. They are requesting to allow a second freestanding sign within 200 feet of another. The zoning is general commercial. It is in Mary Coffee, District 6, the Bonham neighborhood. We mailed out 9 notices. We have not received any in favor and 0 in opposition. The zoning is general commercial. The vision plan is commercial. So in the sign ordinance, this yellow monkey up here on the roof that they have is considered a freestanding sign. You cannot have more than one freestanding sign within 200 feet facing the same road. So they are trying to, they currently have this one. They are trying to put this one at the street. So this is pictures of the monkey up there at the moment. And then I took a picture looking down the road. You can't really see, I mean, you can see a yellow blob in a way, but so with that, staff is recommending approval as the second sign will have their business name, phone number. You could probably see it going down the street. You can't really see the monkey. The monkey just says welcome. It is the purpose of the ordinance was to keep clutter from the streets and everything, and this isn't really causing that. So with that, staff is recommending approval. Any questions?
There's not too many monkeys on the loop already?
No.
Okay. Do y'all have any questions for Ray? Okay. Ray, do we have any public comment on this?
Not on this one.
Okay. So we'll close public comment there. I think this is pretty straightforward. I mean, I think the monkey's a part of the building and they want a second sign that has their name on it. So
I'll make a motion to approve as city is presented.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, next thing we have here is subdivision plats. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. First case is going to be FP 26-05, Southland Hills Edition, Section 30, Single Member District Number 1. A request to final plat 7.443 acres to create 22 lots with the RS1 zoning district located along Valley View Boulevard between Stone Canyon Trail and College Hills Boulevard. Aaron.
Good morning, Planning Commission. Aaron Vanoy, Director of Planning Development Services. On this first case that you just read into the record, we have received a request for a waiver of 30 days. And staff has accepted this waiver, and staff makes a recommendation to table this item until the next Planning Commission. The applicant's representative is here if you wanted to visit with them, but we do recommend tabling the item until the May Planning Commission at this time.
I don't have an issue. Can I ask why? Why
I
they
think
requested?
their clients are thinking over a few things, particularly some of the comments back from the city staff of maybe some of the requirements, and maybe have an opportunity to sit down with city staff to see if those can be worked out. And that would give them the opportunity, instead of us forcing an action under state law, that then we can at least talk with them a little bit in length and see what the best outcome can be and present that at Planning Commission in May.
Okay. Y'all have any comments, or I'd make a motion to table
I'll
for 30
second.
days. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes to table 6-0.
Ray, was there any public comment on that
Oh,
one?
I'm sorry.
He's shaking his head, he's okay.
Okay, here we go. So the next two, we're going to read 2 and 3 together, but then we're going to take 2 separate votes. So we have FP 26-08, Ellison Estates, Section 7-C, Single Member District 6, a request to final plat 5.831 acres to create 33 lots in the RS3 zoning district located between Rimrock Circle and Sedona Trail. And then we have FP 26-09, Ellison Estates, Section 7D, SMD number 6, a request to final plat 5.831 acres to create 33 lots in the RS3 zoning district located between Rimrock Circle and Sedona Trail.
Thank you, Mr. Mize. So we have 2 plats that are adjacent to each other, and I'll run through both of those. This first one is Ellison Estates, Section 7C. You can see this area here that's kind of right behind the Lowe's and adjacent to one of the areas of the Red Arroyo that flows through. You can see all the residential subdivision and some without the overhead image on, but there's some storage buildings there to the left side of the screen. But this is the last 2 sections of this area, and it will be completely built out. This is in District Number 6, Miss Mary Coffee. It's in the bottom neighborhood, and this first section is approximately 5.8 acres. So you can see that section there. It has Sedona Trail at the bottom. It has Rimrock Circle at the top, and then Ray Creek Trail that goes through the middle. It's just adding to this subdivision. It is an RS3 subdivision. They are looking to continue some of the 0 lot line structures. And we've already talked with them about the different lots and how they kind of look and where things will fall out there. But again, a needed structure type in our community. And this is an area that has developed that way over the last many, many years. You can see the vision on the plant on the left is neighborhood. It is RS3 0 lot line twin home residential. They plan to continue the 0 lot line project through that area. The staff does recommend approval, that they would just construct the roads to city standards, construct the alleys to city standards, install water main and service connections, install sewer main and service connections, have a revised drainage study, as well as prior to the plat recordation, revise the plat including a turnaround, or have a developer's agreement that would install a turnaround, and that could be a deferral at the end. One of the end of Rimrock Circle, they're designed to build these kind of together, but in case for some reason something happens, they don't build the other one, they would actually have a turnaround at the end of Rimrock Circle. So that is the first plat. We'll show how 7D works with this. This is Ellison Estates 7D. Again, the same area, just slightly larger, so 6.4 acres, again in District 6, Miss Mary Coffee and the Bonham neighborhood. You can see that Willow Circle kind of goes there to the, I'm just going to say to the north, but maybe not true north, but it's going to go up and then it curves and then it connects into Rimrock Circle. Again, the same style development. You can see the alleyway that they have that runs right here and along the backside. In earlier developments, they have that alleyway that continues along the back, and they have an access back there as well. So most of these will probably be rear entry. I believe that it's under one developer, one builder for the most part, unless they choose to start selling some lots off, but that's kind of the idea. Again, neighborhood for vision plan and RS3 for zoning. Again, very similar, in fact, exact same conditions, except the street names are different. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Do y'all have any questions on these, either one of these for Aaron? Thank you. Ray, do we have any public comment for these?
Russell Gully.
We didn't forget you this time.
Good morning, Russell with SKG. We ask for your approval of Section 7C and 7D as presented, with the exception of item 6 for the turnaround. This was originally planned and approved as one large development, really just an entirety of Section 7C, but just for the timing and cost, the developer decided to split this up into 2 separate sections. So that's kind of why we split it where we did. For those lots that are kind of on that segment of Rimrock Circle on Section 7C that's kind of out there on this temporary dead end segment, it will ultimately be tied in with 7D. The developer already has water and sewer and street plans approved as it was going to be developed as one large section, so they're in the process of installing water and sewer. Planning to do it for the entirety of both 7C and 7D, and then just come in and construct the streets and alleys for 7C at this point. And then soon after that, or once they get kind of building houses for 7C, consume a bunch of those lots, then they'll roll in and then pursue filing and finishing up Section 7D. So those few lots on kind of that temporary dead end of Rimrock Circle, we'd like the flexibility to, and I think Mr. Vanoy mentioned it, the ability to work with staff on maybe we put a moratorium or whatever you want to call it, or something in the land-based system to where the developer will not be able to get a CO on any structures within that dead-end segment until there is a temporary cul-de-sac or Rimrock Circle is finished out. So kind of from a phasing perspective, we just kind of like some flexibility to work with staff on how we actually accomplish that temporary turnaround. And would be happy to answer any questions.
You have any questions for Russell? Okay. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll open it up to the,
Rocky Temple.
oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
If Rocky, you're good? Okay. Then never
Okay,
mind.
we'll close public comment. Now we'll open it up to conversation here. Do y'all have any comments on either one of these? I guess my comment is maybe more for Aaron, but about the temporary turnaround, kind of like what Russell was talking about. Have we done something like that before, or have y'all talked about that previously?
Well, what we're talking about is this section of Rimrock Circle that goes here. And so at some point in our ordinance and in the International Fire Code, there are distances that you can have for a dead-end street. Mm-hmm. Now, as Mr. Gully mentioned, and as Rocky Templin mentioned, this was designed all as one and be a continuous build, and that may be the case. However, the reason it's in the ordinance is there are times, whether it's economic downturn or other things, that would say, okay, well, we don't want the property owner next door to not build theirs, and now you've got a dead-end street that's beyond the purposes for emergency services turnaround. I do think there is an option there to, as he mentioned, so I think, when you get to maybe these last 3 lots on this particular plat, that's the 3 lots that would be probably affected by being past the turnaround distance. That we would put something in our land file that we would not issue a certificate of occupancy until there's either a temporary turnaround place there or the road is completed all the way through, back through Willow Circle, back to Sedona Trail, so that emergency services can circulate. And it's really the same comment on the second properties. This one happens to be longer than 750 feet, and so anything that's over 750 feet is supposed to have a temporary turnaround. Again, if this is Phase B, that may be something that we just do in a deferral agreement, and then at that point, if this Rimrock Circle's already built and it's just connecting through, then that would be obsolete at that time. So I think we do have some flexibility within the ordinance. I think our fire marshal is here if he wanted to speak about the dead end and the reason for the emergency services, but I think there's some things there that we can figure out with the applicant to make it continue to move forward.
Okay. Would that hinder us if we approved as presented, or could y'all still work with them?
We would still be able to work with them. As the conditions here, that's kind of the short version. Within the ordinance, there's always the option of what's called a performance agreement, and within a performance agreement, a deferral agreement can be done, and that is working through just the language that we just file with the plat, so that's there. So if it ever gets sold to somebody else, that they will have that documentation when they buy those properties.
Gotcha. Thank you, Aaron. Do y'all have any comments for him?
So just confirming what you just said, we don't need to take off number 6 or would it be best to approve with the exception of number 6 and then allow you all to come to an agreement?
Once this commission acts on a plat, then it would have to be, that is the final say unless someone appeals it to city council. So my recommendation would be to leave number 6. That gives staff the flexibility. Now, while it's in the ordinance to begin with, if it's not listed as a condition, there are times, especially if it happens 4 or 5 years down the road, the intent of what's going on may have been lost. And if we can do that in a deferral agreement at the beginning, that helps preserve that knowledge of what was the intent of Planning Commission and the applicants to move forward. Maybe this development moves much faster than that, in which we all hope that. But that would be our concern of it not being there. Again, I think there is something, not just the subdivision ordinance, but the International Fire Code, which this group doesn't really have a way to, there's not variances for that. That would be a different process. And so anytime they get over 150 feet, they're going to say you have to do a very specific thing with your turnaround. And so this is kind of that compromise in between there, that we would have one at some point if the adjacent property is not built.
Thank you. Do y'all have more comments for Aaron or any other comments on either section 7C or 7D? Okay. So this will require 2 different motions.
Yes.
Thanks, Aaron. I think we already got public comment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the plat in Ellison Estates, section 7C.
Okay, we have a motion for
Second.
approving as presented and a second for 7C. Any comments, guys? All in favor? Aye. That passes 6-0.
And then I'll make a motion to approve as presented for Ellison Estates, section 7D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve section 7D as presented. Any comments on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That one passes 6-0 as well. Okay, next up, we have right-of-way abandonment. City Council has final authority for approval of all right-of-way abandonment. So the first item on the agenda here, I think.
Yep, I will be recusing myself from this one, so.
Thank you, Mitchell. Okay, we have case number ROW 26-01, Block 55, Hatcher Edition, in front of lots 11, 12, 13, and 14, Single Member District Number 2, a request to abandon a portion of Waco Street in Block 55, Hatcher Edition, in front of lots 11, 12, 13, and 14, being 0.182 acres.
Thank you, sir. Aaron Vanoy, Director of Planning and Development Services. If you recall, a few months ago, right after Christmas, we did a rezoning to neighborhood commercial for these lots that are back here. The applicant wanted to get the rezoning, and at that time, we talked about the potential future abandonment of Waco here from where it's stopped being built over here to the TxDOT right-of-way. So that's this case today, is abandoning that right-of-way so they can come back and replat that all into one lot, a usable lot that would face off of Houston Hart Express frontage road. It's 0.182 acres, being about 7,900 square feet. It's from the end of the Waco Street improvements, where there are no improvements. It's in District Number 2, Mr. Joe Self, and surprisingly enough to me, it was in the Bluffs neighborhood. I keep getting surprised by that every time I see that. Again, we sent out our notices to let folks know. We went out and took some site photos. It hasn't been super maintained. It's just been kind of a gravel road for those that just kind of use it as a cut through. And so there's no utilities, third-party or city utilities in that right-of-way, so there doesn't have to be any easements, and so they'll be able to utilize the full property as they see fit if they choose to purchase it. And just to remind those that are also watching and sitting, they also do own this small portion of this triangle down here, so they will be able to bring that and bring that all the way down there as well. Here's just the image that they brought forward. Again, represents the same thing there. Staff does recommend approval of this right-of-way abandonment. It did go through all the city staff departments to take a look, as well as our third-party utilities. It has our standard comments of to replat the abandoned property, absorbing it into their property, pay the fees per the assessment formula for the abandoned street right-of-way, and record the quitclaim deed. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You have questions for Aaron? Ray, do we have public comment on this? Okay. So we'll close public comment and open it up for discussion. Or motion.
To approve as presented.
I'll second. So we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. Do we have any comments on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. He's ahead of you. Okay, the next case we have here is going to be ROW 26-02, 18th Street Bypass, Single Member District Number 4, a request to abandon 48,423 square feet of right-of-way being the 18th Street bypass between 18th Street and North Post Street.
Thank you. Austin Reed, Senior Planner. This request comes to you from the Paul Ann neighborhood. It is District Number 4, which is Patrick Healy's district. The vision plan for this area is neighborhood, and this measures a little over an acre. What it is, as you said, is a request to abandon the 18th Street bypass. Sent out 37 notices on this. We received none who were in support. We received one who was opposed over the weekend, as indicated by the red star there. They did not indicate the nature of their opposition. Here is an exhibit of the abandonment itself, something that the surveyors worked up. As you can see, their concept plan kind of has it divided into 3 portions based on who wants to obtain their portion afterwards. On our analysis, this bypass measures, as you said, 48,000 square feet, or a little over an acre. It's about 80 feet wide, 80 feet of right-of-way, and the street there itself is paved at 26 feet wide. Of course, all it does is connect 18th Street to North Post Street. If this does get abandoned, you can still go down to that 4-way intersection there at 18th and Poe. There are no city utilities within this right-of-way, and houses right there on that kind of triangle with rear access on the bypass will still have street frontage on the 18th and Poe and are able to acquire their portion of the abandonment if they choose to. And then finally, we don't think that this would negatively affect traffic patterns and would reduce maintenance requirements. So with that, we are recommending approval, subject to our usual 3 conditions. Number 1 is for the remittance of payment. Number 2 is to record a replat. And then number 3 is for that quitclaim deed. You guys have any questions?
Do you have any questions for staff?
My only question is that you made a comment that anyone that has property that abuts that can come at any time, and is that what you said?
Correct. They will have, so notably, these 2 properties, this one right here and this one right here, will have the opportunity to buy kind of their portion of the right-of-way.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank y'all.
Ray, do we have public comment on this?
Russell Gully.
Russell with SKG. We're doing this request on behalf of Bruckner, which is part of the Baptist Memorials Ministries. And we've been kind of working with the city, looking to kind of replat that North Gate area. And part of our discussions, the 18th Street bypass kind of came up. It was going to be a condition to improve that segment as part of the North Gate replat, and talking with the city, it's like, hey, maybe we can just abandon that segment. So that's kind of what we're looking at. You know, like Austin mentioned, over the life cycle of the city, it's a segment of street that the city won't have to maintain. So it could be kind of a lessening of a burden to the city. So, and there again, also as Austin mentioned, each of the adjacent property owners will have the first right. If they don't exercise their right, then the Baptist Memorials Ministry, Bruckner Group, will acquire that and absorb it into kind of that North Gate development that they're working on there. So would ask for your approval and happy to answer any questions.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Russell, but I think a lot of this was due to those being separated out and kind of wanting access to that backyard area in order to mow and things if they're sold separately, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Do you have questions for Russell?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll close, or do we have more public comment?
Yes, Jamal Shumpert. Jamal? One more time.
Maybe not today.
Okay.
Is that all
And
right?
that was it.
Okay. So we'll close public comment and open it up for discussion. Or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented. Do you have any comments on that? If no comments, we'll take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, next up we have rezonings and comprehensive plan amendments. City Council has final authority for approval of rezonings and amendments to the comprehensive plan. First case is going to be Z26-04, 1212 North Chadburn Street, Single Member District Number 3. A request for a zone change from General Heavy Commercial CGCH to General Commercial located at 1212 North Chadburn Street. Ray.
Good morning, Ray Lineberry, lead planner. So this is a rezone request from General Heavy Commercial to General Commercial. It is District 3, Harry Thomas, in the Reagan neighborhood. It is about 0.230 acres. The vision plan is Neighborhood Center, and it is currently General Commercial, Heavy Commercial. We did mail out 34 notices. We have received 0 in support, 0 in opposition. This is a site picture. And I did want to mention, so the reason they're doing this is because they applied for some tiers funding, and within the tiers rules, I guess, you have to, any zones that are the double general and heavy commercial, you have to get it rezoned. We went with general commercial because the neighborhood center vision plan is a little bit more fitting with general commercial. They also are looking at making that building a burger joint, so, and having extra parking. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the rezone from general heavy commercial to general commercial.
Thank you, Ray. Do you all have comments for Ray on this one? Okay, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. So we'll open and close public comment and open it up for discussion or a motion. I have a motion and a second. Any comment on that? I guess I do have comment. My only comment is I'm glad to see this. I hope that it goes through the tiers funding, and I hope that this property gets developed in a makeover. There you go. Good way to put it there. So we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. If no other comment, will all in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, next up, we have conditional uses. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval of conditional uses. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. We have case number 1, CU 26-02, 2417 Rainey, Single Member District Number 2. A request for approval of a conditional use for a short-term rental located at 2417 Rainey Street with a single-family residential RS1 zoning district. Awesome.
Thank you. Austin Reed, Senior Planner. This comes to you from the Angelo Heights neighborhood, District Number 2, Joe Self's district. The vision plan here is neighborhood. The property measures about 0.18 acres, and we have a request for approval of a short-term rental. Sent out 37 notifications on this. As far as I'm aware, we did not receive any responses. Here's a look at the zoning and the vision. On the left-hand side here, we have our zoning, which is entirely single-family residential, RS1. On the right, we have our vision, which is entirely neighborhood. Here's a photo of the front of the property. You can see they have their required parking, and they did pass their safety inspection on February 26th. So with that, we are recommending approval, subject to our usual one condition to follow the conditions outlined in sections 406 and 804 of the zoning ordinance. I will note we are recommending approval until June 1st of 2027 as opposed to June 1st of 2026, when the rest of them would expire. So, you guys have any questions?
Yes, I do. The 500 feet has been, there's not anything within that.
Yes, ma'am. We checked that after they submit their applications.
Thank you.
There's no schools within 500 feet either.
Good. All right, thank you.
And it's not currently being used as a STR, correct?
Not that we're aware.
Okay. You have any other comments or questions for Austin? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have public comment on this one, Ray?
We do not.
Okay. So we'll open it up for discussion or a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented on this one. I think that there's more STRs needed in that general vicinity of town. So.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comment on that motion? If no comment, all in favor, aye. That's 6-0, motion passes. Next up, we have case number 2, which is going to be CU 26-03, 404 South Monroe Street, Single Member District Number 5. A request for approval of a conditional use for a short-term rental at 404 South Monroe Street with a single-family residential RS1 zoning district. Ray.
Good morning, Ray Lineberry, lead planner. So this is a request for a conditional use for a short-term rental. It is in the Santa Rita neighborhood, District 5, Karen Hesse Smith. Vision plan is neighborhood. We did mail out 19 notices. It says 8 opposed. We received, I gave you a copy of 2 over the weekend. So it's a total of 10. And then we received 1 that is not in the notification area. It is zoned RS1, and the vision plan is neighborhood. However, they do have a lawful conditional use, as they have a, I'm not sure if we can see real well. So this is a second dwelling unit, as if they were RS2. So the applicants live here, and they are requesting the short-term rental is for the whole lot. That is how they've always been. The conditional use is for an entire lot. However, their plan is to rent out the back. This is a picture. They do have the garage here, this driveway. They do have more parking that is not included in this picture, but is right off to the side on this side over here. So I will say the applicant was not able to be here today. His military unit got called to deploy. I spoke with him over the weekend. He did write up a letter. I did want to read it in case there are neighbors in the audience to hear what he had to say. Good morning. I'm very appreciative that the neighborhood expressed their concerns and dislikes about my request to use my second dwelling as a short-term rental, and I would love to do my best to go above and beyond to place those concerns at ease so all parties are addressed. I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but the house that is to be rented out is the second dwelling located on the side of the main house. Me and my family will be living full-time in the larger main house as our primary residence. First off, I primarily seek out specific long-term renters who are professionals in nature, who not only bring a vital service to San Angelo and the surrounding areas, but are also law-abiding and responsible citizens of the community. This would not change for my short-term renters. I would only approve professionals to stay at my property, and this can be determined usually by looking over their profiles, or I actually have them answer mandatory questions about why they are coming to San Angelo. This allows me the opportunity to actually see what their intent is. Second, I invest in services that only show me renters who have been verified and have undergone background checks to stay on my property, as I currently live in the main house with my wife and child. I do not let just anyone stay there, and I have specific selection criteria that is tailored again to a specific group of individuals. Also, most of my platforms do not let criminals use their platform, as they use multi-layered screening processes to deny and remove these individuals' profiles. To one specific concern, sex offenders are not allowed and are specifically checked for. Third, I completely agree and will adhere to the quiet hours requested. In fact, I will go above and beyond and say that my house rules already state quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m., 7 days a week, and no parties are allowed. Fourth, in terms of parking and the maximum amount of people, I have limited the number of adults who can stay in this house to 4 adults. The property has 3 additional off-street parking spaces on top of the 2 the main house has, so a total of 5 parking spaces, which fulfills that request. Fifth, I will be doing a better job about making the property look better and have it live up to the Santa Rita charm. And if I cannot be there physically, I will hire out caretakers to keep the property looking clean and neat. I will admit it was a little run down when we moved in a few months ago, but we are slowly making a positive progress toward that standard. Sixth, if I am ever away, I have set up the property to be able to be managed 100% remote. I will and have ensured all needs and services requests are met within a timely and efficient manner. I have a lawn, plumbing, maintenance, pest, and security on call 24/7 and in place, so neighbors should not have to be bothered with unnecessary issues. Lastly, I will do anything and everything I can to address any other concerns that anyone has with this request. I hold no opinion other than to live and thrive in the beautiful city of San Angelo. So if I can bring ease and comfort to my neighbors while also being able to provide for my family, then I will do whatever it takes. I sincerely appreciate everyone who came out physically to today's meeting or simply submitted your concern. I hope you will be willing to see my good faith and allow me the chance to prove my words. Thank you. Respectfully, Joseph Stahl. With that, are there any questions?
Go ahead.
Obviously, he's not here to speak for himself, but if he generally rents out long-term, what's the point of him trying to get the short-term?
Speaking to him, he's having some issues with getting long-term renters recently, and so it's kind of he wants it as a supplement if he can't find one.
And short-term is classified anything under 30 days, right?
Correct.
So he could rent it 31 days or
Correct.
32 days or anything like that. Has he currently rented it as a STR or anything to
Not
your
as an
knowledge?
STR. It was I believe it still is currently a long-term rental at the moment.
Okay.
Looks like it was purchased in January.
Yeah.
So he hasn't been there very long.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Exactly, he's only
Yeah.
been there a few months.
Correct.
Do y'all have any other questions or comments for Ray? Do we have any public comment, Ray?
Yes, we do.
Okay. We'll open up public comment and
Mr. Reed Pfluger.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I want to speak out in opposition against this conditional use. Santa Rita, and particularly its proximity to the school, is a family-oriented neighborhood, and we'd like to keep it that way. A lot of young families move into the community just so their kids can go to that school. And that alone is, we live right across the street from this house. And every owner that's been there has rented that little cottage out, but it's always been short-term. No one's ever rented anything long-term there. It's my understanding, I came here believing that he wants to rent the whole thing out, both residences. When I first met Mr. Stahl, I asked him when they were moving in, and he said, well, I don't know that we're really going to be living here. But it's my understanding that you guys are in possession of testimonies from that map, the other residents there. The majority of the neighborhood does not want this. There's enough of this kind of thing in Santa Rita right now. We don't need any more of it. I think there's at least 10 people voted against it, and which makes up a majority. And I don't think there's anybody I haven't talked to any residents who have approved it or want it. And I don't think y'all have heard from them either. So with that, I'll conclude unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you.
Miss Barbara Rogers.
Thank you. I live at 405 South Madison. My house and the house that they're talking about are just across an alley from one another. This little apartment that the gentleman is wanting to change has been rented. We've lived in our house for over 20 years. And my main concern, of course, is property value and the neighborhood. We're only 2 blocks from Santa Rita School. There are children that walk in our neighborhood to and from school. We have families with small children that are going to be going to school in the next few years. When we first moved into our house on Madison, the gentleman that owned the house did have this apartment. And there was a gentleman that lived there for at least 10 years. So long-term rental. And then the house was sold, and the people that bought it did the same thing. They utilized the apartment, but it was rented by, a person or a couple for long-term. So my main concern was, of course, the value of our property, because we're getting to an age where it won't be that many more years before my husband and I will be selling the property and hopefully going to a situation for our age. So therefore, the value of the property is very important to us. Safety concerns, if this is turned into a short term, I can see in the future, whether it be the whole house, which I really wouldn't like, or even the small apartment, there would be people coming in and out. They could stay for like a weekend. Our trash is picked up every Friday. If they came over the weekend and then moved out, what would happen with the trash and whatever from Monday to Friday? The frequency of vehicles coming in and out. I know most of us, go to bed at a decent hour. With people moving in and out, they may be packing to leave and come and go. I was concerned about the management of the property. As Reed said, I had the understanding that the whole thing was going to be short-term. And if it were, then they could rent out the house as well as the apartment, which would mean more cars. And Monroe Street and Madison Street are very busy, especially during the day with kids going to and from school. So we are in opposition of this. Thank you.
I believe that's all I have for public comment.
I did also want to make sure, I did not say that this is a recommending renewal through June 1st of 2027. As we are in the renewal period right now, it would not give them enough time to have done anything.
Okay.
So we are currently in the renewal process. So if this was approved today, they'd have to turn in their application and pay their fee, and we would have to process the renewal. We're checking on, code complaints, hotel tax payment, everything like that. They would not have done anything, and there would be nothing to check on. This is allowing them to actually get approval and start
Right away.
Right, the lady that just spoke said that this property was about 2 blocks from the school. I know we have requirements in the regulations about a school being close. Is this within any of the feet that is a requirement?
It is not. It's 534 feet away from the school.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to ask a question, and this may be for the two individuals that just spoke, but I believe, Mr. Pfluger, you said it has been rented long-term or short-term because I feel like you both.
It's been both.
Okay, but.
I have to take back one comment I made. I believe I said it's never been rented long-term.
Okay,
And
okay.
it has been.
Okay.
It's just been a long time since it has been.
Okay.
The previous owner, Mr. Stahl, just rented it out short-term, and I guess he was there 5 or 6 years. I can't say, but it's roughly.
And Ray, was there any kind of
And there
permit
are two-
approved
there are two
for that?
proposed that should be on that list, that we aren't getting those testimonials today.
Right, I think that was noted. I think y'all had 10 in
Yeah.
opposition.
Look,
On clarification for the public too, I know that the entire property, you're indicating is just the back apartment, which there was no picture of. Is it for the entire property? The house and the?
Yeah.
So a conditional use is on the entire lot. The owner's intent is just the back property, but the conditional use is for the entire lot.
And that's
Chairman, I
Yeah,
think we
yeah,
need to make.
sir, I think we understand y'all's comments there.
And so, asking about the conditional use, Planning Commission can put additional conditions on a conditional use.
Correct.
Like using only one of the structures?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so again, sorry, Ray. Is the owner currently, I know you said he is off on deployment, is he currently living in the front residence?
According to what he sent in on this piece of paper, him and his wife and his daughter are living in the front property.
Sir, thank you. I guess my comments on it are, I don't have a problem with STRs in general, but I do have a problem with them when every single neighbor has a problem with them.
I agree.
I'll
So,
agree with
yeah.
that. I feel like this property, and I know that the owner said that they haven't had any luck on long-term rentals, but they've only owned the property since January. So I think if this property might be suited for a long-term rental, and they might have it sounds like they're trying to fix the property up. So I think it would be better suited for that versus a short-term rental.
And tremendously easy to rent something long-term in Santa Rita. I mean, I have no doubt that, I mean, maybe it's a price issue or something, but I have no doubt that there's multiple families that would love to rent that, or couples, long-term.
My concern is the way the conditional use is right now without putting a condition on that so that the two could not be. I have a problem leaving it like it is written right now. So I go along with some of the other comments that are being made, but my concern would be that if he's living in one and 3 months from now he moves out of that and wants to do both, I have a real problem with that. So we would have to put a condition on the conditional use, in my opinion.
The only problem that I have with denying, which is, I guess, a side note, is I don't know how this was portrayed when he bought it. You know, I don't know if it was portrayed as, hey, this can be, this is a STR or whatnot. I mean, so I do hate that for him if that was portrayed that way, but I have a motion if y'all don't have any other comments.
Well, I have a few more comments.
Okay.
Because when we talk about the way it's portrayed is, I am in real estate, we have to do our due diligence as well as the owners or whoever's purchasing that. So if that was going to be a question in the beginning, then that is the owner or the new buyers as well as their agent's responsibility to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's 534 feet. Yes, I do live in this neighborhood. I am close to that school as well. My child walks home. I have had multiple neighbors who are concerned just for anyone that's going to be in a short-term rental type thing. I am in agreement with them. There's way too many children who are walking up and down every one of those streets. Third thing, even with conditional uses, he's military. He could easily be deployed shortly. That entire property can then be utilized for both. Even with conditional uses, obviously, if they're not utilizing it the way it should be currently, I have a question and I have a concern with that, and I agree with the other neighbors.
And there may not be a local person to answer if he can't.
When you say remotely, I own multiple properties in San Angelo too, and there's nothing done remotely.
On Monday mornings for 4 hours, my phone is silent.
Yeah,
so.
every 24 hours a day. So you're welcome to make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to deny.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment on that? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is denied 6-0. Okay, next case we have CU 26-04 1417 Lindell Court, Single Member District Number 2, a request for approval of a conditional use for a short-term rental located at 1417 Lindell Court within the single-family residential RS1 zoning district. Right.
Good morning, Ray Lineberry, lead planner. This is also a conditional use request for a short-term rental. It is at 1417 Lindell Court. It's in Angelo Heights neighborhood, District 2, Joe Self. The vision plan is neighborhood. We mailed out 42 notices. We have not received any in support and any in opposition. It is zoned RS1. The vision plan is neighborhood. A picture of the house. They did pass their safety inspection, March 26th. So with that, staff is recommending approval, and again, we are recommending renewal as of June 1st, 2027. With that, is there any questions?
You said there were none in opposition?
Nope.
And nothing within 500 feet, and the parking is approved?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this, Ray? Or Aaron?
No, we do not.
Okay. It's not currently being used as an SDR?
Not
To
that
y'all's
I've
knowledge?
heard, not that staff knows about.
Do y'all have any other comments or questions for Ray on this one? Okay, thank you. Open it up for discussion or a motion? I'll second. We We have a motion and a second to approve as presented. Do y'all have any comments for that? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. We're in agreeance today. We have a next case there, and I think, Mitchell, are
I'll
you
be
going to
stepping
recuse
out for
yourself?
this one as well.
Thank you. Okay, case number 4 here is going to be CU 26-05-2121 Knickerbocker Road, Suite C, Single Member District Number 5. A request for approval of a conditional use to allow retail sales and services at 2121 Knickerbocker Road, Suite C, within the light manufacturing LM zoning district.
Good morning, Ray Lineberry again, lead planner. 2121 Knickerbocker Road is looking for a conditional use to allow retail sales and services. The current zoning is light manufacturing. It is in District 5, Karen Hesse Smith, in the ASU College Hills neighborhood. We did mail out 9 notices. It says 1 in favor. We did receive 3 more over the weekend in favor, so there's a total of 4 in favor. The zoning is light manufacturing. The vision plan is commercial. It has operated in the past as retail sales and services. It was an office before this. So with that, staff is recommending approval for the conditional use to allow retail sales and services with the following 3 conditions: that they generally conform to general commercial zoning district standards, that all lighting shall be fully shielded to not create a spillover on the adjacent properties. There is an apartment complex in the back, so that's mostly for in the back area, and that they obtain all required permits, including the change of occupancy.
Thank you, Ray. Do we have any public comment for this, Aaron?
Yes, we do. We have Miss Mary Jane Stedman.
So I'm Mary Jane Stedman with Alexander Construction Company, the landowner and neighboring landowner as well. And I'm single member District 5 as well as the property, just if you have questions.
I don't think I have any, if y'all don't. No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jamal Schumpert.
Jamal Shumpert, SMD3. I don't really have a complaint about this, but I do have a complaint about the process of the planning of how that was done over there. But in SMD3, our light manufacturing isn't being turned to retail. In fact, we're being incentivized to be more industrial light manufacturing. And I know it's a lot of those lined up in that area that was light manufacturing behind that railroad for probably the same reasons ours was. I just would like for planning commission, the commission, not the staff, because the staff does a good job at trying to bring retail in on the east side. But as you see, we're actually shifted towards the east side in the southwest area, well, that southeast area because of the highway. So now we have all this industrial that's kind of gonna be permanent, and you're gonna have people needing retail and food services over there when it expands. So I would like y'all to look more into that. I know y'all doing a comprehensive plan, and it should add more into that, but I would like y'all to do a lot more because we don't really have a lot of food places or, you know, retail businesses on the east side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all our public comment.
Okay, so we'll close public comment, open it up for discussion or motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second. So we have a motion and a second. Any comment on that, guys? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And I think we need to get Mitchell. Oh, yes. Can we take a short break for a bathroom?
That is your discretion, sir.
Okay, we're gonna take a 3-minute break here. Okay, I think we're all back here, so we'll resume. And let's see, we are at ordinance text amendment. City council has final authority for approval of text amendments to the zoning ordinance. We have the case TA 26-01 data center. Consider adopting land use regulations for data centers through a conditional use process within the light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing zoning districts and amending section 319 use table in the zoning ordinance. Aaron.
This is a discussion and an action item for us to adopt specific use land rules for data centers within our jurisdiction. As you can see on the screen, and as we discussed last time, there's currently an interpretation by myself, the director, to allow data centers by right on ML and MH properties. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. The proposal is to create a conditional use process to allow data centers in the light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing zoning districts as a land use. With that, we're going to have some definitions to adopt, design guidelines, noise, site plan, and I left on here water use regulations. As we've been studying this and looking at this, the zoning ordinance is a poor place to regulate water usage. That's what our utility ordinances are for. And so while we reference our utility ordinances and our utilities director will be bringing something forward to city council to, as we might say internally, beef up those ordinances for data centers and how they use water and the quantities. That's really for the water utilities area and our city council to make a judgment on those things. Same thing as with wastewater and how it's disposed through our utilities. So while it's still discussed here briefly as a requirement, as a, hey, those that are looking to do data centers, we want to make sure in our zoning ordinance that there's a reference that goes back to you must follow our utility rules as well if you want to use this land use this way. We want to also add section 430, which is the land use, amend section 313, which is our land, our use table, adopt appendix A for landscape species recommendations, and officially rescind the director's interpretation of the existing ordinance. I think that's very important that we rescind that it's not just hanging out there. So the proposal to create the conditional use means that this gets to come to a public hearing for anyone that wants to come in and do a data center land use in our community that has a zoning of light manufacturing or heavy manufacturing. Those are the two highest zoning classifications that we have in our land use documents. That also means that they are not allowed in heavy commercial, general commercial, neighborhood commercial, ranch and estate, those zoning districts. They would have to choose one of those two zoning districts, and they would have to come for a conditional use to the Planning Commission, public notice sent out, public newspaper, allowing the citizens to come forward and make some statements of for or against or their concerns for that land use. Again, if Planning Commission does approve a conditional use, it can be appealed to City Council, and then City Council has that final say on that conditional use. So just like our conditional uses for our short-term rentals or for the land use over there in the light manufacturing, if anyone wanted to appeal those would go to City Council. So last time we showed, all these areas that are in blue, whether it be light or darker blue, those are light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing. The heavy manufacturing is the darker blue. Particularly here, you can kind of see this area right here, and there along the railroad is some darker blue and then lighter blue down in this area. And of course, over here around the junction of our loop and 67 and things that come in through there. 277 also comes in this way. There's our industrial park and stuff. And then the newly annexed area that comes out here off of 67. Here's kind of the north side. You can see there's a kind of a strip there along North Bryant that comes through, and then again along the railroad, you can see as it comes down and the railroad comes into this area with a spur. We know that there's some very heavy industrial steel manufacturing that goes in there. There's a little bit over on this side, just off of MLK, and then along the Houston Hart Freeway, just north of downtown as well. And you can, we heard about the railroad earlier. The railroad is one of those predominant features that lots of light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing uses used to take place along railroads. Here's the south side of our town. Again, you can see the railroad that kind of cuts through. It kind of meanders through from Fort Concho, south of downtown, comes through, crosses Bryant, crosses Knickerbocker, and through there. And then, of course, across from the base off of South Chadburn, off of Dan Hanks and Christoval Road. There are some areas there. And then even the deep, farther south off of Christoval Road, there's some areas in the back and a piece of property over here right there. And then there's some just to the very, very tip south off of 277 that's light manufacturing as well. So a lot of areas within our community. We're talking about a conditional use process for data centers. Data centers come in all shapes and sizes. We have them as accessory uses. We have them as primary uses. And we've had them for decades in our community. Now we're talking about very large data centers that would come into our community and find places that may work for them, but these rules or regulations are to help mitigate the risks. So some of those other standards to help mitigate the risks are definitions. What's a principal use? What's a generator yard? What's the accessory uses for data centers? When they go through a planned development, so maybe they annex some property in, it comes in as ranch and estate, and instead of them zoning to light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, they could ask for a planned development. They would be subject to all of these design standards and regulations within the ordinance as a land use requirement. Within the conditional use, they're going to be required to submit plans that show, elevations, site layouts, noise studies, materials, signage, all of those things that come forward and would come forward to Planning Commission with that conditional use packet so that the public knows exactly this is how they're going to lay it out, this is what it's going to look like, here's their landscape package, here's what their noise study says, here's what their traffic input says, all of those things. If they're really wanting to come in and get a conditional use to become a data center within our community, those things would be required up front, and so that Planning Commission and the public can have comment on those and make an informed decision. So again, here's some of the things that we talked about last time. The major thing that is added on this list is a traffic impact analysis, or commonly called as the TIA. We would ask and require of the companies that they would need to do one that's for the construction time, as well as once you start operating, because it will be different. Construction time, there will be much higher traffic, much larger vehicles. What does that impact to our roads, highways, whatever they may be? And then what is it going to be after that? How do we mitigate those issues there? Again, fencing, landscaping, screening, lights, photometric, signage, building elevations, sound study, all of those things. So let's get into some of the setbacks. This was one of the areas that we had discussion or some discussion on last time. And just want to remind you that this is a setback for structures. How much of a setback for structures when it comes to a residential zoning or use. So we have front, side, and rear yard. It was discussed last time, we had proposed a 300-foot buffer, and then through discussions, we've come back with a 100-foot buffer for those that are within the city limits that they abut a residential land use or zoning. If you're outside the city limits, say the property is within the city limits under our jurisdiction, but the ETJ property is a residential zoning or land use, then it's a 50-foot buffer. And that's from property line to property line. So if their property line, we've got a data center land use, and their property line, it may be a cotton field, but there's a house that's in that cotton field, even if it's 300 feet away, they're going to have a 50-foot buffer on the data center side for those that are in the ETJ. Any questions or comments about this slide, about what those distances are, or what we're recommending today on those?
I know it's in here, and I have notes on it, but what is the setbacks for non-residential abutting?
That's a great question. Right here, we have, so if it's against manufacturing, commercial districts, things like that, the building setback must be 50 feet. So they couldn't have a 50 feet or the collapse zone. So if they had a 75-foot structure, they would have to be further back because the collapse zone for that structure is beyond the 50 feet.
And that's front, rear, side?
That is correct.
Okay.
So if they have ground equipment, which is generators and all of these other types of equipment, one, we're saying they need to be within where the big structures are, so they would be kind of in the centered or not on the opposite side, or they have to be 150 feet, which is going to push that structure even further back on any of those types of setbacks. If they happen to be adjacent to a right-of-way that's just a local street, something like that, their setback is only 25 feet. If the arterial or collector, and so like Highway 67 is an arterial, they would need to have a 40-foot separation before they started doing anything. And then if they just have regular pavement, say if it's just a driveway for someone, they would have a buffer, an area of 15 feet as a minimum. So if it's just a driveway or something of that nature adjacent to them. Again, building height. The height is restricted to 3 stories or 75 feet in these regulations. If it's greater than 50 feet, then the setback is plus 10 feet per story up to 75 feet. Again, so the higher it goes, the further back they need to set it. Accessory height is 30 feet, and that's the max between property line and the primary structure. And so we're trying to keep, whether that's exhaust or something like that from a generator, we're keeping those heights limited to keep that. And there's a reason for that is to, and we'll get into it a little deeper, is for the landscaping, the proposed landscaping to help us with that. Because they're going to help remediate some of those things that are happening with generators and things like that. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Question, Aaron, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Go back. So that accessory height, what if there's multiple buildings on one parcel? How do you classify what's an accessory building and what's not an accessory building?
Well, we would go back to our definitions. What are they using the building for? If it's for data center purposes as far as storage, data storage, that's a primary use, that's a primary building.
Okay.
Usually we're able to tell on the site plan, and they label them on the site plan of what they're doing per building. It's one of our requirements. We're able to see what they're doing and where they want to place them on the land. So that does come back with the site plan review. That is something we would certainly work with the applicants if they're struggling with our ordinance to find out, well, where should I place this type of thing? Maybe they have, a small service building that they're using that's just their office. Well, where would that would be an accessory structure. So we would make sure it's located in the right spot and the right setbacks and the right height.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk about landscaping. This was a discussion item last time. And I apologize to you, Planning Commission, as well as our citizens, that I did not present the landscaping section as well as I could have last time. I think we've come together and started looking at this a little bit more strongly because landscaping is a critical piece of any site. While we don't have a landscape ordinance in our current zoning ordinance, landscaping is very critical for citizen protections, for not just the aesthetics, but also what else can they do as landscaping that helps mitigate some of the issues that come with large structures, heavy industrial types of things. So landscaping shapes how people feel, usually when they see or enter a large building. What does it look like? We know that landscaping, under lots and lots of studies, there's called photo remediation, where the plants actually can help remediate issues. They take in some of that CO2 that's put out and regenerates oxygen out of that. So they can improve air quality, they can filter things, they can reduce the heat around buildings and provide shade and green space in areas not only for pedestrians, but for wildlife. But as you have those things that are emitting out from any type of industrial use, but particularly with data centers, it is going to help be softened by the foliage, by the items that are landscaped around. Landscaping also helps mitigate stormwater runoff. It helps prevent flooding, because the more you have areas that are not just a brown or caliche area, that it's actually got some kind of landscaping, swales and things like that to help mitigate and allow that water to drain down into our water table. And it does support local plant and animal life. Trees and shrubs placed in the right spots can reduce the heating and the cooling costs by blocking wind and providing shade. It also gives, as you're driving down the highway, it gives visual breaks to what you see. So if you have a cluster of trees that are there, say there's 3 or 4 clustered in, and then another 100 feet, there's another 3 or 4 clustered, and so on, you start seeing that, and you start picking up that as opposed to a big major structure that's placed behind them. Again, here's that phytoremediation, can help remediate the toxins in the soil. There's different species that can do that. And they do also function as sound barriers through absorption and sound deflection. So within our ordinance, we have that 40-foot buffer. So this is kind of what that would look like. You can see that there's an arterial to the front. They would have a 40-foot buffer from that's landscaping. As you can see, this is, again, a very large scale. You can see that we lowered the limit of trees and shrubs, but the idea is to get some of this clustering some of the small trees together, clustering some of the large trees together, and as you're driving, potentially at highway speeds or anywhere between 55 and 75, you're going to start picking up on the landscape as opposed to just a solid surface behind that. And that's really the idea, is to pick up on the landscape and have that go through. 25-foot buffer, just a little more narrow, and so those trees, particularly the large species, will be more elongated out, separated more linear, where the others could still be clustered because of their size. And then when you get to the 15-foot buffer, you can see it almost goes to a very linear, large tree, because there's just not a lot of room in there, and you don't want to fill up that room. It's just difficult to do that. Now, one option that we have also provided within the ordinance this time is to maintain what we would call the natural state, or the natural buffers that are out there that exist today. Now, obviously, if that's a cotton field or wheat field, that would have to come in and, all right, we need to landscape those areas. But if you've got a mesquite pasture that has mature mesquite trees that's able to satisfy some of this, and you just have to fill in a few trees, that would be an allowed submission under the ordinance that we're proposing today. We would say that those buffers would have to be similar to this, but they would have to be at least, I believe, 30 feet wide is what I believe we put in there. And so they would have to have at least 30 feet. That would be the natural landscape that's out there. So this is in the Chaparral Park industrial area. This is actually from their parking lot, looking back up at some of the new areas of 67, right before it hits Loop 306. You can kind of see the linear thing with the live oaks that are there. It's not the greatest picture, but you can start seeing there's some clumpings of other plantings in through here that you can see that kind of break up the space. Now, they chose to do turf at that time. Obviously, the applicants here, they could do turf if they chose to, but we are also allowing native grasses and would encourage the native grasses. One, because they're probably not going to need as much watering, and two, they probably won't need as much mowing because they may only have to mow 2 to 3 times a summertime whenever the big rains come, but other than that, they may not have to mow those areas. So that cuts down on maintenance and those types of things. But you can see the linear shape here with the trees. You can kind of see the power lines, that they're just right below the power lines there. But as you're driving on the highway and through highway speeds coming in, you start picking up those trees as the site, as you're you're driving as opposed to the structures that are behind them. This is along a side local street. Again, you see that linear definition of those trees that are going through there. These are live oaks, been around for about 20-ish years right in there, and so they've started to fill in fairly nicely. And then along the back side, where there's also another street that you can see that they've have kind of a linear effect there. Now you can still see the building through these. If they chose to do a natural habitat barrier with these, that probably even helps better, because now you've got some shrubbery and things that are a little lower, and if you have these natural large trees filling in the gaps, if you will. So again, we did opt for that natural buffer as an added option. They can do a mix and match if they chose to. The goal is to get some landscaping to help cut down on the negative effects that could come from data centers, as well as your eye, while you're driving or passing by, you're picking up the landscaping and not necessarily the large structure behind it. Now, these could be very, very large structures, so I know that can be, it's maybe hard to visualize, and I didn't have a way to do a video and, hey, let's drive by some of this and see what it looks like. But as you can imagine, as you're driving at higher speeds, the landscaping is going to be more pronounced than at lower speeds, because that's just the way your eye catches things. Again, we've allowed the natural prairie-style grasses, stones, boulders to reduce the water usage and maintenance, and requires the drought-resistant species for plants and trees, and that was a thing that the Planning Commission had mentioned last time, is make that as a requirement. So other items that we discussed last time was the parking, making sure that there's enough parking but not overparked. Ground equipment, again, must be screened with masonry. Rooftop equipment is visually screened. There are some fencing options, particularly masonry along the front or wrought iron, and then some other style fencing along the sides if they choose to fence. Excuse me. And then if there happens to be a parking lot that's over 100 spaces, they've got to have some landscape islands in there. Again, creating some of those islands that reduce the heat as you're walking into, and preventing that radiation coming back up from that parking lot that goes back into the community. Lighting be shielded, pointed downward, not to exceed 30 feet, and the lights on the building be between 10 and 18 feet. So it's really accenting where people need to walk or look for maintenance things, not just, hey, let's have this huge perimeter lighting to light up everything around there. Noise has been a concern, and so we've put in things for different noise levels. These are things that they would have to submit before they came to Planning Commission. This is what we believe our noise is going to be. Then after they do the construction, they submit another plan that shows this is what our noise actually is, and if they have something, then they've got to find ways to mitigate that noise. One of the things that is talking about generator testing to be during the daytime, not at nighttime. If they have something that happens and they have to kick their generators on, they just have to notify the city within 72 hours, say, hey, our generators had to come on because we were directed by ERCOT that power is being diverted from us, it's going to other places. We had to run our own generators or whatever their energy source is. Water, again, these are things that will be going into the utility ordinance. I left them here on the slideshow because I want citizens to understand that they may read our zoning ordinance and say, oh, they took all the water stuff out. We did take it out of the zoning ordinance, but it is going into the utility ordinance, and that will be heard at City Council coming up in May. The same time that these regulations, if there's any recommendation today, that will go forward hand in hand so that the community can hear both of those things together. But again, in those utility things, there are water allowances, exemptions, and an exceedance protocol. And same with the wastewater that would come from that. So if they had a coolant discharge, how would they have to clean it? There's certain levels of industrial things within the wastewater portion of the utilities ordinance that they have to meet. That's all of our industrial customers have to do that. And so they would have to do that for these data centers. With that, I have these recommendations. One is to rescind the current director's interpretation, and two is to adopt Section 430, being Article 4, the specific land uses, amend Section 313 to add data center as a land use under the industrial category, amend the use table to add C for conditional use in the columns for light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing, and adopt Appendix A as the approved landscape plant list. Now, next steps, I left on there what we were planning to do, but it would be, I believe it's May the 5th, as well as May the 19th would be the next steps at City Council for public hearings. First reading, public hearing, and then second reading and public hearing on May the 19th at City Council. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I think public comment would be good, and then we can discuss. Do y'all agree? Yes. Okay. Can we open public comment? Ray?
Okay, first up, Jeff Fisher.
Before we begin, let me, oh, hold on. That's okay. I was going to say I have my timer, but I'm going to try to be quick. Jeff Fisher, single member District 4, Paula neighborhood. So as a concerned resident, I wanted to bring up some of the things. I think this is an improvement in many ways from where we were 3 months ago where we had nothing. So kudos to everybody involved in that process, putting these together. But unfortunately, because I only have 3 minutes, I'm going to try to just stay on topic and cover some of those things. I passed out the draft of the ordinance that was presented today. The light gray, because I didn't have a color printer, is marked up with my comments, so you can kind of follow through on those as well. I guess the first part of this is regarding the data center and the definitions. I think it needs to be clear that accessory uses, I think this is probably okay, hospitals and offices. It just needs to be clear that the data centers are an accessory use, couldn't be a new data center that's 300,000 square feet on the same property as a factory that's 1 million square feet, because that technically is accessory in the zoning ordinance. So I think however you guys clarify that, I think that one should be looked at. Second thing, I think Mr. Vinoy said it on record, and that's great, but I think we just need to have the language under number 2 that if a conditional use or a PD is required, that not only do you see those noise studies and lighting studies, but that those are put into the agenda packet, and that you're voting on those things. You're not just seeing them, because there is a site plan and a UDR, urban design review process later. And again, nothing against staff, they do a great job, but you guys should be the ones to approve that, and the public should be the ones seeing it, not kick down the road to site plan. So I think it could just be a tweak in the language to say, not just reviewed, but also decided on at the meeting. Where are we here? So setbacks, I think the sweet spot could be 200. A lot of cities, I think 100 is a bit aggressive. I think we either have to choose. If we want a 75-foot tall building, as well as a 25-foot, mechanical equipment could go up to almost 100 feet, then I think we need to increase the setback. I would say 200 feet. I don't see why the people in Harriet or any other ETJ get any less standard. I mean, they chose to buy out there, but they're the most affected by this. A lot of us might be 2 miles down the street, but they're right there. So I think 200 should be for both. I mean, even 150, and then maybe look at the height restrictions. Building configuration, I think, yeah, I'll skip ahead of that because that relates to the height. The fencing materials, there's already required in the zoning ordinance a 6-foot-high buffer fence between residential and non-residential. I think that should apply to the ETJ here as well, but here it's saying that they could technically use a coated chain link fence, which is not a solid screen. So they have to solid screen it. The trade-off would be, I'm out of time, so last thing I'll say is the noise, 55 decibels during the day as well. That's the Loudoun County standard, not 60. Everything else, though, should be clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Ray?
Jamal Shumpert.
Jamal Shumpert, SMD3. I first had a question, because I've been hearing people talking about we're going to lease the land. And if that's the case, would this be necessary? Because couldn't we write everything into the contract and go further if it was leased? But even if we're not gonna lease the land, I was wondering if maybe you could put in a condition maybe to test the water, actually test it to see what chemicals will be putting in it. Because if they're gonna put it back into our system, we might wanna know what they're putting in there. And if not, also when it comes to the buffer, I agree it probably should be bigger. And why don't we require them to build us an orchard? You say you want to look at stuff off the highway, and it's a nice look, and it's aesthetic, and helps the nature, helps the animals. The animals will need food, and they are in our city everywhere. The raccoons, the foxes, the deers. Maybe that'll drive them more towards that with pecan trees and orchards. That's really kind of all I have, because once I heard that we was kind of leasing the land, I was like, we're gonna make a zone specifically for this data center, and everybody else is gonna have to follow because it's this data center, even though it might not be a data center coming in, that wants to use this conditional type use. I was just curious about the lease, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamal.
Edward Terry? Okay. Jennifer Dendy?
Hello again. I'm Jennifer Dendy. I live in District 5. A lot of these ordinance changes I think are good, but I have the same concern, is that what is the enforcement capabilities, what's the enforcement capability going to be on all of these? If they build 75 feet and decide they want to add more square footage, where is the limit going to be? This is our chance to set the limits, because there's going to be more and they're going to be closer in town probably. And this is our chance to really set firm limits on all these things, on water usage, energy usage, square footage. When I think about how big the GTE building is on Johnson, and you're going to have that only be 50 feet, 30 feet, that's a big building to be so close to the edge of the property line. Anyway, I just hope that y'all take the opportunity to make tight rules that are enforceable through something stronger than the code compliance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rocky Templin?
Morning, Rocky Templin, single member District 6. I think y'all were overwhelmed with a lot of stuff a month ago, and here it is already a month later. So I don't know if y'all have all y'all's questions answered or not. But some of the ones I still have is the height and the distance. We typically annex a portion at a time. We build right up to the annexation. So I may have 100 houses next to the RTA, and you're saying that they can build within 50 feet of that. And so, because they're in the ETJ, and then my houses are all built right there. And so, if anybody lives or has been out to Buffalo Heights, you'll find out if you're in the county and somebody builds a solar farm next to you, well, that sound carries for a long way. So those decibels, I don't know that you can even see the studies on them without it being built or finished. And so 50 feet from residential to the ETJ is not very far. 100 feet's not that far. And so when it comes to the residential part, I think y'all need to protect it. You need to get it, there's gonna be a lot of these, so I think you need to get it right. And I don't think it's just be the burden of the planning commission. I think there should be possibly a resolution where it takes 2 public meetings. The planning meets on it, 2 weeks later, city council meets, 2 weeks later, they have a second reading. Thank you.
Karen McGinnis?
Hi. Karen McGinnis, 5225 Oak Grove Boulevard here in San Angelo. I came today to get information. And I have to say that some of the opening statements about a moratorium make sense to me, because the further I get into this, the more I realize it's sort of like you get a new job and they say, do you have any questions? And of course you don't have any questions because you don't even know what to ask. And it seems to me that that's really where we are right now. It also seems to me that we're all pretty much agreed the data centers are coming. So what is the hurry? Are we afraid we're not going to get the first wave and we might miss out on something? I have a lot of questions. The setback, for instance. I heard you talk about landscaping, but you know, you can put lipstick on a pig and it's still a pig. How long for that mature landscaping? I think you said those trees have been in place 25 years. I won't be here in 25 years. My 5-year-old grandson will be middle-aged in 25 years. The closed-loop cooling system, can you enforce that? And that water will be released at some point. So I think testing is a really good idea. Because the Texas legislature is going to put some guidelines, hopefully, in place in January, that's 6 months from now. What do we lose by waiting 6 months to see what those experts come up with? And finally, have you talked to the city planners? Have you talked to the residents? And there are many all over the United States who are living with data centers, who have been living with data centers, and getting their feedback, because I think what they have to say is the most important of all. Thank you.
Mary, is it Darcia?
I just came to a post about the data center. Good morning. I wasn't expecting this. I didn't say I would talk or not, but anyway, I'm here, and I'm here to oppose against that data center. It would be nice, it would bring a lot of money, but in the long run, I think it would take also a lot of effort and a lot of our water that we don't have. And I may be understanding this wrong, I don't know. I've never been to a meeting like this. I just watch y'all on TV, on the news. But I hope we're making the right decision. I think this is something that we all should, not only us decide, but direct the question to our Lord, to have a safe city and a safe place for our kids and less problems. And I just hope I reach the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all of public comment that signed up.
Okay, so we'll close public comment and open it up for discussion.
Aaron, what I did was appreciate some of the changes that we did discuss, and you made changes to the ordinance, but I still have some questions in comparing the old that we had to the new that came this last week or so. I see that we added on applicability, not only the RS 1, 2, and 3, but then we added the new 4, 5, and 6 in there, the ones that were added last month.
Are proposed.
Yes, proposed, and I noticed they were added in there, so we're talking about a lot of residential areas that these could go in. One of my questions right now would be, see, I wrote it down, do we have any of these now, small ones that we're not aware of, that we know that we have a data center right now?
Yes, we have data centers within our community. They're not within any zoned residential areas. They might be adjacent to residential areas. Two of them are on state-owned property, and so regulations do not apply to them. Our local regulations do not. There's a few others. I mean, City Hall has a data center because of what we do, but it's going to be an accessory use because City Hall is the primary use, and the data center to keep the city running is the accessory use. These are for commercial-style data centers, whether they're for-profit, nonprofit, whatever. We have chosen to say, let's do a conditional use process, but there are some in town. I do think, we started out with the proposal of 300 feet separation between residential and a data center, and that's at the property line. Again, we also added an ETJ. We haven't found an ordinance yet that has a distance for the ETJ because there is no zoning in the ETJ.
Right.
We can't control what someone does or doesn't do out there, but we can control what's within, and if that property line is adjacent to the ETJ and they have a residential use there, then they have, in this proposal, a 50-foot. I think we had mentioned maybe it was 100 foot in the previous one. And so that.
Okay.
Well, that was a discussion here at the Planning Commission. There was a discussion about that those were pretty extreme, the 300 and the 100, and so we limited that back to 150, and within the city limits that has a residential zoning and a residential use, or in the ETJ down to 50 if they have a residential use.
Do we have any study or information from other places that have these about the noise? There was something brought up by one of the ladies that spoke about noise, and my question is, do we know how far, maybe Rocky might know, how far that noise reverberates out? Is it 50 feet and you can't hear it anymore? Is it 300 feet and you can still hear it? Do we know?
So our ordinance already limits noise from passing past the property line, period, for whatever kind of use it is.
Okay.
Period. This says that these are the levels that it can be on the property outside of the building. There are tons of studies for noise. I don't have any in front of me that I want to give a quote to, it says this, but on Wednesday evening, there's a town hall meeting that will probably be discussed.
Okay.
And I invite all the public to go to that. But there are studies that are done. Our consultant that helped us with these, they went straight to their sound guys that do this all the time, and these are things that are mimicked in some other ordinances around the country. Virginia is one of those places, and Virginia has the highest data center per population, and we are putting those in ours here to try and help mitigate the sound issues for neighbors. We anticipate this area to be very heavy industrial, and of course we know even closer to town could be even very, very heavy industrial. But we also want to mitigate those noise issues by setting here's the maximum it can be, as well as the landscaping aspect that will help buffer some of that sound that comes from those facilities.
Okay. And of course, we talked about the landscaping, and I appreciate some of the changes, making some of that a little more dense, which would help a little bit more. Water is also on the minds of a lot of our constituents. Several people have asked me, what about our water? What about the reclaimed water? Will this have, will the reclaimed water, once it's used, will it have, what is the word? Any contaminants in it that we need to know about? Have you heard any report about how that water comes out after it's used?
Well, I have not talked to any data center specific people that operate data centers or anyone that's actually coming to our community. I don't have any of that knowledge. But what I have done is talk to our water utilities director, and they have helped walk me through the water utilities ordinance and showed me the sections of where it's already been beefed up in our ordinance about industrial uses that are connecting to our wastewater and dispatching wastewater back out. There's a laundry list of items that they must, the business must prove up before they can discharge that wastewater. Lots of different things in there. There are minimum levels set that they have to have they can't go over this level and have that in the discharge, whether that's the coolant water or other discharge from that facility. So those guys are the experts in that, and I'm going to let those experts continue to be the experts. I'm the lay person saying, well, here's what it is in the water utilities, but we wanted to ensure in our zoning ordinance that, hey, these are also rules. You have to abide by those in the utility ordinance, so it doesn't get missed.
Well, I know we talked about water in the plan, and I'm glad you moved it, or the thought is to move it to the utilities.
Yes.
And let it be an ordinance out of their knowledge of their product that the city provides.
And they have much stronger enforcement and supervision of what goes into our water, what comes out of our water. They're looking at that all day, every day. That is their expertise. And so.
And I'm assuming tomorrow, Wednesday evening, as we have the opportunity to discuss this as a community, they'll be on stage as well as someone from the utilities I'm talking about.
I believe they will be. I know they'll be there for sure, and I know that there'll be folks that will certainly be talking about water and wastewater and how data centers impact communities in that way.
And my last question for the moment, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, is there a moving factor for this to be done by May?
For my knowledge, no. We know that we have data centers looking at us. And the longer we delay regulations, we have no regulations. And so if our community wants regulations for data centers specifically, we would want to move forward. Now, in the state of Texas, the legislature in the last thing did a state bill that limits moratoriums. Whether it's for residential or commercial development, they've limited them that they have to be based on some evidence. There's a lack of resources or lack of something, and it's very specific in those laws that talk about that. And then it says you can only do it for 180 days, period. You can't do anything longer than that. Texas is a development state, and we like to move forward, but we like to move forward informed. I know the folks that have been working on these regulations, we've been working since November when we decided, hey, we need to start coming up with some regulations for data centers. That applies to all data centers that might want to look at us moving into the city limits.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
You bet.
I noticed, Aaron, a lot of questions, concerns, comments is why rush? Why rush? What's the big rush? My main question is that if we're looking at adopting and changing a zoning, why not wait until after the city council meeting where everybody can try to understand a little bit more on the certain questions and they don't feel as rushed?
Well, that's a good question.
Or the city council town hall.
We have had two discussion cases about data centers and data center regulations with city council that were open to the public. We know we're having another one on Wednesday night. We have been working on these, on the zoning regulations, while others have been working on other things for data centers in general. And that's what I want to really enforce, is this is for data centers in general, not for a specific one that may come in or may not come in. Again, I think the longer we wait, someone could go and buy land today, and then they would have a vested right in doing what they wanted to do if they had the right zoning. They would not be subject to these rules, and so.
If we change the zoning
Well,
for those specific.
but they could choose to go and move into one of those light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing areas now. Or they could just go into the ETJ and have no rules. And so part of it is a balance between what is the best overall for our community, and how do we help mitigate some of the risks through zoning. There's other risks, mitigation in other ways too, being water utilities ordinances and things like that. But we're wanting this, zoning is the most transparent process. That's where you have the public meetings. That's where you have those things. And so this would be our fourth time to discuss data centers in front of Planning Commission, and trying to move that forward at an appropriate pace so that other business people can make decisions is, I think, very important.
Thank you.
So, Aaron, my question, and this answer seems maybe counterproductive or too easy, but I expressed at the last meeting that I would rather see more regulation than not. And I'll be honest, the last meeting was the first time that I was looking at those, and I've looked at them since then. I've looked at comments from those that have been working on these regulations. Appreciate the time and effort, and I have now more questions, just as like Mr. Templin said. The more you learn, the more questions you have. My concern, like you just said, is if we don't do something now, that someone could put in a data center by right. Is there a way to just now say data centers are not allowed in these areas so that we continue to develop these regulations? Or maybe not even not allowed, but will require a conditional use permit, which would then have to come back to us so that they do apply with regulations. Maybe we don't approve these today, we continue to look at modifying those, but put something in place so that they're not allowed by right.
Right. Well, the process to do that would be to require a conditional use, which is what we've publicized that we would be doing through this process.
Right.
As far as the design guidelines, that's adding the land-specific use. So we have lots of land, different specific uses, just like short-term rentals. There's a land-specific use for that. RV parks, there's a land-specific use for that. Frac centers, frac sand haulers, there's a land-specific use for that. And so without having that, you really limit yourself without having any definitions, any guidelines of, all right, what can they do and what can they not do? You just have a conditional use, and then one time it may be one thing, one time it may be something different. While y'all have the ability to look at what is our public comments for this specific area, similar to a short-term rental case today, you're like, there's a reason why X number of people said no. Okay, well, why they wanted to say no, why would we say yes? All because they may meet the criteria doesn't mean you have to say yes. And so this is a long answer to your question, but I think my recommendation is to move something forward for City Council to hear y'all's recommendation on what we want to do, and let them make the decision on, do they continue to move forward or do they put the brakes on for something. But I would recommend making a recommendation from Planning Commission to move forward with something. Our staff's recommendation is to adopt a conditional use process, add the section 430, which is the specific land use under Article 4, and then adjust the use table to put the conditional uses in the light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing areas. Not sure if that was a great answer, but that's my answer.
Thank you.
I have a few comments. First, thank you, Aaron. Thank you, city staff, everybody that spent so much time on this and gone back and forth with all of the public comment, all of our comment, all of city councils. And thank you, public, for, coming out and sharing your opinions and thoughts. I mean, super important. If we hadn't have had all this comment, then we wouldn't have even thought that this was a huge issue for anybody, just like any other thing that comes up. If people don't talk about it, then we don't know. I like the things that you've done. I like moving the water to utilities. I think that's where it should be. I don't really think it has a place in zoning. I like the landscaping stuff that's been changed. I guess kind of where I'm at with this is, like we've talked about, if nothing is done, then anything can be done. As far as the data center, that's it, right? And the first step in doing something, whether we like it or not, is planning commission and then city council.
That's
correct? Like there is
For
no
zoning,
city
yes.
council does something and then it goes to us. It's always us in this instance and then them. So every time, and I say this in saying the person that I was big on delaying it a month and pushing it. But the reality is, whether we like it or not, they're gonna come here. I have some of the same questions as far as, we have multiple 100-degree days. It's going to be harder to cool, all the things. We also have a lower population density. We have cheaper land. We have more access to utilities or power and things. So there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad. I still have a lot of questions. I don't feel like my questions should stop some regulations. And I'm a little bit different than Liz. I probably err on the side of less regulations, which is fine. I think that's great that we all have different opinions up here. But just hearing from residents and hearing from the city staff and everybody, I think we need to get something in place. And I know it's always a million times easier to do it right the first time than go back. I don't think moratorium is the answer, just because I think that there's some legal questions that I don't understand, and what I would hate to do is get the city in some sort of legal mess. I mean, that's the last thing that we need. That would be even worse than water usage and all of the other things. I like what's in here. 90% of it, I feel like y'all really took it to heart when we had so many comments and we had such a long meeting and all of the things. I feel like y'all really did a deep dive. I do feel like the first, packet that we got last month was a little rushed. Not saying that it was. I feel like it was. I feel like this is a little more put together. I feel like it provides enough protection, but not overstepping of that protection. I'm sure there's still little things here and there. I mean, even the building setbacks and stuff, just reading some of the comments and, listening to some people like Rocky and things and, looking at solar farms and stuff out in Buffalo Heights. That is something to think about. I mean, the decibel levels, I have no clue about decibel levels, and I have no clue to learn about decibel levels. I need somebody that's, educated in that field to, present the information. And I do feel like we've had a little bit of a lack of information, but I feel like the city staff has really tried to do a lot better and tried to present us with as much as possible. I think there's a lot of rumors, a lot of allegations, a lot of things that are spiraling. But the reality is the data centers are going to come to the area, whether we like it or not. We, with these regulations, can decide, do we want any say? Do we want them to be here? Do we want their tax dollars? Do we want to push them out? What do we want? And from a very zoomed out overview, I would say that I probably want them here, but I do want some regulations. I would not be terribly opposed to just saying 100 foot for all residential, even in the ETJ. I wouldn't be super opposed to that, but I would just like to say to other members here, I think that we need to do something today, because I feel like that is for the betterment of the citizens. So that way we can then push it to city council. If they determine that a moratorium, or if they determine something else, I mean, I'm sure that, you know, they're probably a little bit more educated than us on this matter, maybe not. Maybe I'm overstepping by that, but I think that they may be. I think they've had a lot more information, and I think they get the final say. I think that we need to push something forward, even if we don't agree with 100% of it.
That's what we're trying to clarify is where we have the questions. I'm sorry. Wow. Turn this off. See, they even said, slow down.
You're back off.
That's where we all need to be educated and understand where they might have that specific knowledge. That's where I think everyone's frustration is coming from, or comments, rumors, so forth. Mainly the questions, because I still, like Liz said, I had questions. Okay, now I even have 100 more questions based on just getting some answers today. Yes, I agree, we probably need to do something. On 50% of that, I feel like we're rushed. I don't know, I feel rushed making a decision that is going to be presented, that I think we should have the public have some say and learn some more information on these specific setbacks and everything else.
Which I do think, I mean, we're having a town hall, and I'll be honest, I haven't attended any of the town hall meetings discussing data centers, but the one on Wednesday, I will absolutely be listening to or be a part of for knowledge perspective. So I hate making a determination on this prior to hearing more from the public.
I agree.
Are there any specifics that that you're wanting to hear from the public? Is it setbacks? Is it, I mean, because we have the strongest noise rules in there. We have landscaping. We are going to have water, wastewater. What additional things?
I think my concern is going to be the noise decibel, the height of the buildings, the specific setbacks. I mean, you can go 50 feet, you can go 100. When people say, oh, we might do this, or we could end up doing this, unless it's specifically in an ordinance that says, hey, Rocky, you can't build unless you build this many feet back.
Right.
Well, we might do that, we might do that. I think by saying that, the verbiage, the legal verbiage, could be confusing to the public.
I think it's very clear in our ordinance that you must be, if you're by residential, it's got to be 100 feet in the city limits. If you're in the ETJ, it's got to be 50 feet. It's very
But
clear.
like you said on Buffalo Heights, you know, you're outside the city limits, 50 feet.
Well, there's no regulation there. They could be right on top of you. And if you're right next to the ETJ today and a data center goes into the ETJ, they can be right there on top of you. There's no separation. We can't regulate that.
I think, what, you had 300 and 100 in the last?
Yes.
I would rather be more restrictive than not. I mean, if it's 200 across the board, whether it's residential or ETJ. I understand the ETJ is not as heavily populated, but if I'm that one landowner that we're talking about in the ETJ that's going to be 50 feet from, I mean, I would not be happy. Regardless if my house is, you know, set back because I have farmland. I think we need to have the same protections for everyone across the board.
Okay.
Well, I agree. I would want, the 300 might have been too much when we discussed it last month, but the 100 to me is not enough.
Okay.
So maybe the 150 to 200 inside the city limits, and we do want to protect the ETJ as well. I know today they could be on top of them, but 50 just doesn't seem like very much. So those are my comments. I would like to see them raised a little bit. I would say at least 150 and 100. I don't know how else the commission feels.
I think another question I had, Aaron, just as far as more specifics in the fencing, I see all the recommendations, which I have no problem with, but my question is, when is fencing required?
That would be up to them if they wanted to do fencing.
To me, I
It's not a
think,
requirement
yeah,
as of right now, because you're talking hundreds of acres.
sure.
And so what does that mean?
Millions of dollars.
Yeah. So while there's a high probability that they're going to want security, and if so, then we want to say, well, this is how we want your fence to look.
Yeah. I guess I would think that there should be required fencing if it abuts residential development.
Again, this is going to be a controversial opinion, but we're talking about this because it's unknown and because we're scared. That's the truth. We're unknown and we're scared as a community. There's so many things that could come in heavy and light manufacturing. So many things that don't have half of these restrictions that do 10 times more damage. I mean, if somebody wanted to go to the ETJ and create a 500-foot hole and dump toxic waste in it, the city couldn't say anything. Maybe the EPA could or something else, but last meeting, we talked about a lot of things, and somebody said, to some degree, we have to trust the city staff and things like that. And, I mulled that over, and I really wasn't a fan of that, I guess, generic comment at the time. But, the more that I have delved into this, the more questions I do have, right? Because in the beginning, it was like, you don't even know what to ask. You don't know what you don't know. So, I don't. I feel like such a big decision and so many regulations and things. I worry about delaying. I think it would be nice to have it after the town hall, but my worry is, then we have a town hall and the town hall creates more questions. And then the next month we have more questions. The next month we have more questions. And then we do a moratorium for 180 days. And then it comes back, and then some data center comes in and says, you know what, I'm tired of waiting. I want to start making some money.
But it's our job too, to actually know what we're actually putting in there and agreeing on, so we can have questions. I used to be a teacher. There is no dumb question ever.
I agree.
And I am not gonna rush something because I will have a question and I could ask him a question and it's gonna turn into 10 more. And then I feel like I'm rushing everyone and I feel rushed. And I would prefer to wait until after the town hall. And if that turns into more questions, all it does is educate us more. I just one vote.
I don't disagree, Linda. I don't disagree.
Can I speak to the town hall meeting as to how that's going to happen? So that is scheduled, of course, our public information office.
Sorry, Rick, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, Rick Wise with the city manager's office. So the town hall meeting is, like you said, coming up, and the way they're structuring that is they've allowed the citizens to submit questions. Those have been submitted to the office. After looking over those, we've got a lot. I can't say that there's a lot of questions that are outside what you're talking about. It's typically these questions. The way that'll most likely be structured is that a lot of the questions that pertain to the city, which are water restrictions, there's the 15 gallons per square, it limits it. There's a lot of misinformation about that out there. So it'll answer most of those questions in writing. Those will be in a question. Aaron will do this sort of presentation, which talks about this specific guidelines that answer all those questions about water use, noise, all those things. And then the representative from Emergent will be there to answer more specific questions that pertain to just a data center, how it operates, things of those nature. So I don't think you're going to get, from what I've seen on the questions, more than what you've already seen. A lot of that is just putting out the correct information I don't want to get into arguing whether I like a data center or not. This is about if we're going to have one, then how do we protect San Angelo, and how do we encourage them not to just go build outside the city limits? And if you take no action, continuing, that's what you're encouraging. So I would rather set the guidelines and get those in place and start the process. As you said, you may want to change. These guidelines were just based on what you guided us from last time. So if you don't like 100 feet, change it to 150, change it to 200, and send that on. Like you said, council very well may alter those. They may accept it just like you have it, but they may also alter those. But I think that it is time to go ahead and send them something. I guess we could ask council if they want to receive it with no action from the planning commission, meaning that you weren't willing to make a recommendation. They can also receive things that way. But I think y'all have given it already a lot of good guidance from your last meeting. So perfect that up a little more if you want, and I would say send it on to council. But
Rick, before you walk off, is there any reason, if we have consensus, that the meeting on Wednesday, that we could, as planning commission, could we meet Monday again? Having heard the presentation?
Call for a special meeting?
Yes. Is there any reason we could not do that?
the notice requirements would be the main thing.
Okay.
Let me let Aaron speak to that.
Yeah, just like last meeting when it was tabled, we'd have to go through the full renotice of the 1,157
That's what I
properties.
wanted to know. Okay.
And go back to the newspaper notice, have to go through the full
Process.
Full process.
Okay. All right.
Do that. Now, what
Thank you.
What you can do is, you're certainly welcome, after sitting through that, to show up at the city council meeting to make comment. So they certainly respect all of y'all's opinion a lot, so you could do that.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
Or contact your council member as well. You all are represented by one, and you can tell them your thoughts so they can reflect those.
I have a question about, just conditional use, and really, I guess more to put it on the record than anything, but, so what we are voting on is a conditional use, which is the same thing as, earlier in the meeting, we had a few conditional uses. Mm-hmm. We had them about short-term rentals. We had them about, the retail sales and services and light manufacturing. So, what we're saying is any data center would have to come in to get that conditional use. In here, there's quite a bit of information that they would have to provide. Now, let's say that we approve something, let's say that council approves something, and then they come in, ABC data center comes in and they apply for a conditional use. I guess if city staff then approves that conditional use, how much power do we have to say, no, we want to make some additional changes that we didn't already tell you about, or we've learned some additional information, et cetera, without being, I guess, targeting or without being discriminatory, I guess. How much power do we have in saying those things after this is put in place for those conditional uses?
Well, the conditional use process, the city staff could make a recommendation to the planning commission if they've fulfilled all the criteria that is, say, approved by city council in the conditional use process. That would come forward to you guys. Y'all would be able to look at that and have the discretionary decision-making on is based on where it is in our community, based on citizens' input around that. Are there other protections, conditions that need to be added to that? Or is this not the appropriate place and your vote on that specific conditional use is a deny? At that point, the applicant could appeal it to city council and have it heard at city council. So all conditional uses come to this board. Now, there is a special use process, but it's very similar to a rezoning. It comes here and it goes to city council. That is an option. Making them just create a whole new zoning ordinance or zoning classification for them is an option. We think this is the best option because the volume of land that we have that's dedicated to light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, and looking at other cities, even within the state of Texas, that allow them in light manufacturing or what they call heavy industrial areas. Some of them require them, are forced into a planned development. Some of them require a conditional use. Some of them are allowed by right because it's literally storage of data. And if you look at our ordinance, that's where that fits. We've chosen to say we want some more protections, or we think we want more protections. We hear that from our citizens. We're bringing that forward, saying here's what we think are reasonable protections for the citizens around where one of these might be. The details of, well, it needs to be 200, it needs to be 7 trees, it needs to be, that's the hard stuff. That's the stuff that you get into the minutia of those things and what makes sense. But I echo many of what y'all say. I mean, everything comes up with another question. Part of it too is, like others have alluded to, the city staff and others have done their due diligence in trying to do the very, very best for the city of San Angelo. We're not going to agree 100% on all of it, I don't believe, and that's okay. But I think we should move forward with a recommendation to City Council, whatever recommendation that is from the Planning Commission members that are here.
Just to echo what Aaron said, the reason we set this up too is because we were hearing citizens say, we want another chance. It's not just staff deciding. So this process gives that chance for them to come to this board and make comment and then to council again. So we're setting it up, we think, how people are wanting to get them.
And Aaron, that doesn't mean that once, say we approve this, the council approves it or makes a change and then it's done. And 6 months from now, we come back with public comment with problems, and we can come back and say that 150 feet is not enough. And we can make an amendment to this conditional use.
Yes, we could. And even in the conditional use process,
You can do that.
you could modify that distance because of the situation, maybe where it's located. You have some discretion of saying, all right, well, our standard is 200 feet. Well, maybe in this case, we really need to be 300 feet. Now, you have to kind of be consistent of why that is and where, but yes.
And then as far as the, goodness, I just lost my thought. Hang on. Hang on. Somebody else.
I'm
It
gonna
totally
ask a
just escaped
question.
my brain.
Rick, you kind of spoke to this, but as far as the discussion topics on Wednesday, are people asking specific questions relating to these proposed restrictions, or is it more just general, we don't want data centers?
No, it was sort of all over the place,
Okay.
but a lot of them were these, how are we controlling water use? A lot of the things you've discussed today. And so I think those are spelled out well in this document, especially as they've altered it with the water and so forth. But a lot of them are city questions about these guidelines. And so, this will be, I think it's timed well. I mean, yes, if it could have been before or not, but it's timed well in the fact that, these are what we think is good, and we're presenting those. They'll be made public again during that meeting. But then it gives council a chance to hear that as well. And so if they choose to alter those slightly based on some comment, it's not like that's not doable. We're going to have 2 readings at council. So, I mean, there's still multiple opportunities to tweak that in areas that may need to. I mean, it's seldom that, this board ever has the luxury of getting something so perfect when it goes to council, because there's always more comment that's coming in. So y'all really get to do the due diligence on the front end and get it going. And so that was a long answer.
What are the 2 reading? It's the 5th and the 19th?
Yes.
That the council.
I remembered my thought.
Okay.
And I wrote it down. Just to confirm, Aaron, what exactly, in this that y'all proposed, what exactly would they have to provide in that conditional use? They would have to provide a site plan? Would they have to provide the noise studies and all of that stuff to us? Or what in here would they not have to provide to us?
So they would have to provide all of those items, and we're able to put a clause in there if that needs to be very specifically spelled out. That's not a major issue to do that. But it's really, where are the buildings and locations? Where's that ground-mounted equipment? Parking, driving, circulation, sidewalks. What's the traffic impact analysis and what does it mean? The fencing, landscaping, screening, the lights and photometric studies, the sound study. And now the sound study is going to be probably pretty generic, saying, yes, we're going to be able to meet this sound with this. The real sound study is once it's built and it's turned back in. And then what does it match what they said? Building elevations and materials and signage. And so there is an element of things that are kind of left up to staff, but that's the responsibility of staff, saying our citizens care about this. We want to make sure we're doing it right for the citizens so that when we go and we evaluate those things, we bring them forward to you guys. This is a lot of work to get to a conditional use. It's a heavy lift for them. Now, I think they're all going to be very interested and willing to do it, and we've talked, the ones that we've heard from, this is not out of the ordinary. And so we think they're going to come forward, do these things, give the transparency and the protection to the citizens so they can see that in the background information that a conditional use is coming forward. And it's probably going to take us a couple of months to work with them to get all this as a finalized application before it comes forward to the Planning Commission.
And that conditional use, when it's brought forward as an action item, right? We can
Yes.
approve it, we can deny it, or we can table it and
That is
ask them to
correct.
bring back more information, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Would I be able to ask one of the individuals a question that spoke earlier?
I think you just check with the chairman to see if you want to open up
Yeah, I
public
think
comment for
that's-
that.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Specific person?
Mr. Fisher, can I ask you a question? I know you've done a lot of work on looking at these and have suggestions and comments. And I know you also would like a moratorium, but my question is, do you feel that, do you have the same concern that if we don't pass something now that, I guess I'm wavering on a moratorium or passing something now so that later, if the conditional use application does come through and we need to rework some of those, like what's the lesser of two evils?
Yeah, this is tough. I would say as someone with a planning background but also as a resident, that this is a tough situation. And I think I appreciate all of you today, trying to weigh the different factors. Another option is you could, in theory, if it's on, since it's on the table, you could rescind the director's interpretation. That would be a legal question, but then Skybox, it wouldn't stop Skybox. Of course, if they're, because of vested rights, I believe they wouldn't have to follow this anyway. If they volunteer to, that's great, but that, by rescinding the director's interpretation, I believe would actually essentially stop all the new ones and leave it kind of in a gray area, I think. If we're going forward, though, I would say, put something in here with the conditions. I didn't mention moratorium myself. I know some of the other members are. I think initially, just because we live in Paulina, this is what triggered all this, and we only found out when it got to second reading. So I think, to staff's defense, what Shane said, having no conditions could be a problem, and it could open the door for more of them. So I understand that, and to Candy's point, you could always make amendments to those conditions later. Even though I'm a fan of the greater setback, I think 200 was the sweet spot instead of maybe not 300 and maybe not 100. But even that too, somebody could come into the zoning board of adjustment and apply for a variance later to some of those setbacks, and so that would be reasonable. So I think it's all up to you how you want to do it. I would be more in favor of the conditions, but I wouldn't hold anybody. None of you would be doing a bad job to say, hey, we're not comfortable with this either. I think the concern is the longer it goes on, the more of them could be coming to town. And so having something in place, and then the other advantage is once it's there and it's in writing, hopefully we can try to push Skybox to follow those on Wednesday. So that would be my thought. Thank you for letting me speak again.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I would like to just go ahead, based on even what Mr. Fisher just said. I'm in the belief that we need to do something rather than sit and be open to things happening that we're not going to like even more than we don't like the push that this has brought. But under setbacks for residential, I would make a motion to our commission that the residential minimum from building setback, instead of 100 feet to the nearest property line, be 200 feet.
residential?
Yes, residential adequacy, and that the property line of residential zone property and 100 feet to the nearest property line of a residential occupied property.
Okay, so just to clarify, yeah.
So like the front yard would be, the front side and rear would be the 200.
For inside the city limits.
Yes, and outside the city limits would be 100.
And then is your motion, is it a motion or just a comment?
No, it's a motion.
Okay, is it a motion to do that and approve everything else as presented?
No, just making a little change, tweak to this before we decide to.
Okay.
I'm not making a whole motion, I'm making an
A quarter
adjustment motion.
Okay.
That we can consider that then
Okay.
in the whole. But no one may agree with me.
I would be in favor of that.
I would rather see it just 200 across the board. I mean, I understand the reasoning for doing less outside the city limits, but to me, I think we should give the same protections to those that are in the ETJ as we are residential.
As maker of the motion, I have no problem with 200 and 200 based on the comment.
So she said that she didn't have an issue, that it'd make it very simple to be 200 feet from residential, whether it's inside the city limits or outside the city limits.
And I would agree that that's not a hill I'm willing to die on, so. All of the other things in this packet, do y'all have any other?
You have a motion and a second. Do you
Can
have
we
a
vote
second?
on just that one thing?
Yes.
Or can we, do we have to vote on the whole?
Yeah, it's kind of messy if you do it that way. It would be more of a denial as presented, and then
Okay.
it's kind of messy. I would kind of.
Well, this is presented to us as a whole, and I'm making a motion to make a change in the whole.
recommendation, maybe not a motion.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
So we
in
have the
motions.
recommendation for 200 feet across the board for any data center conditional use abutting residential zoning in or outside of the city limits.
Yes.
Of all the other stuff in the packet, do y'all have any other recommendations for maybe a future motion from one of us in the near future?
I don't know how anybody else feels on this. I like the idea of requiring fencing when it abuts residential properties. Because right now, I mean, I know there's suggestions on what fencing materials may consist of and all of that, but there's no requirement for fencing.
So in saying that, I have a question. Residential properties, let's say you're outside of the city limits and you have a 500-acre farm. Is it split up by parcels, or you have 500 acres and the house is on the same parcel, but it's, 483 acres away? Is that still residential use there because there's a house so far away, or no?
That is a challenge of trying to implement something with the ETJ.
That's
So
understood.
with this image here, say you're on, they chose to do something on this property. And this property here, say they have a residence over here off of this road. If that's all one parcel, that would be the property line that you're talking about.
So it's by
There's-
parcel according to the Tom Green
Right.
County Appraisal District?
That is correct.
Okay.
And so if that parcel happens to be, say if it's 2,500 linear feet, that's 2,500 linear feet, they would need to, they'd be required to place a fence if we chose to apply it to the ETJ. Now, if this happened, say this dark happened to be a residential area, then it would be along that residential property line by the residential area.
I think that they will put a fence because they're building a multi-million-dollar facility, but I don't like the idea of requiring one. And if they choose to, I guess, not protect their asset by not putting a fence around it, I think that's their own discretion.
I would rather have more regulation than to come back and ask for something than not to.
Like ask for a variance of it?
I mean, you can always ask for not to have something instead of us adding more stuff to it. It just covers us, I think, a little bit more safely legally, too.
Well, and that would be something you could look at easier
On
as
residential.
at a variance. I mean, look at the proximity or where it's located.
That would
I
not
agree.
qualify for a variance.
A
Fencing.
fence?
Fencing
Oh.
does not qualify for a variance. It has to be a numerical number, and there has to be a hardship. I mean,
Okay.
yeah. But I do think if your recommendation is, well, let's require fencing, I think that we can put that in the ordinance as a recommendation to city council. Let them make a decision on whether they want that or not.
And the recommendation is fencing only abutting residential area or residential used areas? Or is it perimeter fencing, or is it? Sorry, I just want to make sure that we're clear.
No, I see what you're saying. I mean, I would say abutting residential areas. I guess I don't know how much their interpretation there can be or subjectivity to that. I think that's maybe what you're getting at.
And then I guess in my question of that, I don't hate the idea because my opinion is we have to move something forward. But are we talking about fencing on the perimeter, or could they have fencing just closer to the property, the building? You know, let's say they have a 300-acre parcel and it's, I don't know, 1,000 feet wide or something like that, and their building is only 300 feet wide. You know, would we require perimeter fencing, or could we require fencing just along the, you know, maybe 100 foot off of the building? Because I feel like perimeter fencing could be a great cost if it's a 300-acre parcel and there's thousands of linear feet. That's my only comment, is instead of doing something like that and requiring them to spend money on something like that, you know, give and take. You know, if we give them, hey, you don't have to put in 20,000 linear feet of fencing, but maybe you should donate to here, or maybe you should do this instead. I would like that more than saying, hey, you have to put in all this fencing.
Commissioner Albert, I just want to understand, so fencing, say if it was 8 foot or 10 feet tall.
Right.
What are we accomplishing by the fencing, that this broader band, not that we wouldn't have the broader band of landscaping, but what would we not accomplish with the broader band of landscaping as opposed to a perimeter fence that may be 6 or 8 feet tall?
I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking I would rather if it were me, I would rather have a fence separating myself from one of these facilities. It may not accomplish anything. I don't know. I'm just thinking as a landowner that might be living next to one of these facilities, that would be my preference. And maybe, I mean, if it's not perimeter fencing, if it's somehow separating my property from the building itself or from the structures themselves.
Well, 200 feet is going to, if we approve that, 200 feet is going to be quite a ways. There's going to be, then the landscaping is required. You're going to have quite a bit of separation. I understand your thought about a fence, but do you want an 8-foot fence squarely in front of your face? You're going to, because these buildings can be up to 3 stories.
Yes.
You're going to see the building anyway. That 8-foot fence or 6-foot fence might not make much of a difference. I think the 200 feet maybe helps a little bit more than, but that's just a comment.
When they come for the conditional use and they give us their site plan, could we then say, hey, you know what, we want you to put a fence here? Could we say that?
You could add the condition of requiring a fence and where the location would be. I think the question is, do we require the fence up front?
Okay.
Or do we not require the fence up
But
front?
if we require it up front, we can't take it away, right? Because it's not a varianceable item.
You can't get.
Yeah, it is now. It's a word if you say it.
Non-variable, yeah.
I mean, I would be, I get what you're saying. And
so-
if that's the way to potentially further restrict them, if it has to be on the back end, then I would be okay with that, I guess.
You could always add the condition of a fence. Now, I think you could require the fence and at the conditional use say, we really want the fence at the perimeter, or we, based on the way you have it laid out, doing a right around the buildings is sufficient. I think you would have that option within the conditional use. That way you could still put it as a required. Fences are required. Part of this is really fences off a roadway of what is, as you're driving by, what do you see? But I do understand the property separation. If it's residential, we're hoping most of these are going to be very adjacent to other industrial uses. That doesn't mean they would be, but that's kind of our hope of limiting to certain zoning districts within the city limits that we have control over.
I mean, I would hope so. If I was putting in a data center, I would want it to be far away from people who could complain. So far away from residential.
Well, if you look at Pflugerville, Hutto, Round Rock, all of those have data centers now, and they're right across from apartment complexes. And you talk to the city governments there, they don't have complaints, they don't have issues. I mean, they just work simultaneously, and they're right up against industrial parks.
So could we word something to say, maybe not fencing is required, but maybe not leave it open, but say, fencing is up to the discretion of the planning commission when you go for the conditional use? Can we word it some way like that so it's discretionary?
Yeah, we will put in something in there about fencing will be considered at the conditional use in front of planning commission. Okay. Something like that. So they know that fencing is a requirement, where and what maybe, yeah. Okay. And we'll still have kind of, hey, if you're wanting to do it this way, here's some options.
Okay.
So in a motion, correct me if I'm wrong, what Candy was implying is if we made a motion to approve this with an acceptance of
200 feet for the residential
200 feet
separations.
inside city limits and 100 feet setbacks outside city limits, and also to include verbiage regarding fencing and
Yes.
planning commission in the future. Is
I
that
do think they went 200 across the board, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So 200 separation for residential across the board. Require fencing that will be considered
At
at
the
planning
discretion.
commission. Are there any other?
Sorry, I'm talking,
Do you-
I'm just
No,
thinking
that's good.
how we verb.
That's
Do
good.
y'all have any other comments on setbacks, building height, building regulations, parking, screening? I'm just naming off things, sorry. Landscaping.
Under noise, I had a question under number 11. Under noise, down noise B, number 5. The way that reads, I don't know who's paying for this. Within 60 days of issuance of a certificate of occupancy for each phase or development, and at any time the Planning and Development Services Director requests it, a post-development sound study must be submitted. The study must be conducted at a time generally known for peak data center cooling operations. In the event the study shows that the use exceeds maximum allowable decibel levels, the operator must immediately undertake all necessary efforts to comply. My question is, who's paying for this noise sound study? Is that for them to pay for, them being the applicant?
Yes, ma'am. They would do that initially. They would do the pre-development and the post-development within 60 days.
Oh,
And then as it moves forward, if we request another sound study, it would be a split cost between the city and the developer.
If there
to
was a
ask for that.
second one.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
And for the public, let's say that you do abut one of these data centers and you do have issues with sound. How would they go about telling the city, I would like you to to do a study because this is very loud, or whatever that looks like?
Right. They would need to go through the normal complaints for any kind of zoning violations.
So code compliance.
Code compliance would go and investigate, look at things, take some of their meters out there to see if they can determine anything. If we have, and there's nothing that says it takes 1 or 20 complaints, at some point, if we've got consistent complaints, then we could ask for that of the applicant, say, we need a sound study. We're getting complaints specifically in this area, adjacent to the property, whatever that is, and say, we need to evaluate that and see if we need to have some mitigating risks.
And could people outside of the city limits still submit complaints?
No.
Okay.
This may be getting too specific, but the maximum sound levels during the daytime and the nighttime, what's considered daytime? Is that 8 to 5?
I think generally, and Holly might recommend this, usually it's 30 minutes after dawn and 30 minutes before dusk is daytime, and then
Okay.
it goes into nighttime. That's a pretty standard thing that is measured by what's daylight and nighttime.
So during the summer, daytime could be
Longer.
It would be
8 to 8.
extended, yes.
Okay. I don't know, again, this may be too picky, but I would rather just that be between, kind of like your testing hours here,
9 to 4?
9 to 4. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has an opinion about that.
Well, that's the test during the daytime instead of testing at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, it also says testing at normal times, right? So if
Yeah.
they're running at peak time during 2 a.m., then you probably want to test during then, right?
As far as sound testing to see what they're emitting for sound, yes, for sure.
Did you have a recommendation, Liz, that you want to change that, or?
I mean, I don't know if anyone
Officially.
else has any, I don't know what the difference in 5 decibels is. I think it could, to me, it would be like during working hours is the higher level, and then when everybody's at home. That would just be my recommendation, if you just use the same, or 8 to 5, or, again, I don't know if anybody has a strong opinion on that or not, but I guess we could have we could pick this apart and everybody could have opinions. Yeah, so. It's just a comment.
What section are we talking about?
11A.
So would you want to say 60 decibels during working hours? Or do you want to put a time to it?
Well, just
Well,
like right
these
here.
are 24-hour facilities.
Yeah.
But we know our citizens, for the most part, not universally, are asleep at nighttime and are awake during the daytime. And so that's the difference between them. So at nighttime, we want it to be a little quieter because you don't have birds singing. You usually don't have as much high wind. That's during the day. You have some truck traffic at night, but not near as much vehicular traffic. And so you're going to hear other noises during the daytime.
What is the difference between 5 decibels?
Well, that's why I'm like, can we just change it to 55 across the board at all times? To me, that seems,
We can. Yeah.
that seems like that would be a lot easier to have one, again, I don't know anything about what this actually means, but,
So 55 is a whisper in this room.
okay. But I just feel like it would be easier to control. You're always at a 55 decibel level.
So 55 is whispering?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
So-
it needs to be 60.
But again, these are at those property lines. We've already established there are some setbacks, whether it's 50 feet against commercial and industrial or 200 feet against residential. That sound transference, hopefully there's some landscaping there that has caught a lot of that and that it's not bleeding over. Now, the proof is in the studies. What do those studies say? I agree. Is there much difference between controlling it at 55 or 60, daytime or nighttime? I'm not sure there is.
And I have another question. Again, I hope that you don't think that we're just dragging this out for stuff, but, you know, they're gonna submit studies before things are built, of course. And we can do a lot of things on the computer nowadays, but then when the building is actually built, we'll then do a study and say, does this actually comply?
Yes, within
If
60
it does
days.
not comply, they have to do everything to make it comply before they get a CO?
Not necessarily. They would get that within 60 days of their CO, they have to submit a study showing what they've done, and then they have to mitigate those issues.
Because they'd have to be up and running for us to even tell.
Yes.
And they can't be up and running without a CO.
It's difficult to do.
So then if they, you know, this is not me talking, this is me talking probably on behalf of other citizens or people that like more regulation. You know, what is the process of revoking that CO in a time frame of how long they have before they have to fix the problem?
Well, we'd go through the standard notification processes that we have for any zoning ordinance violation. If it's a zoning ordinance violation, we would move through those items. That could simply be issuing a citation. It could be that we need to come back and revoke the conditional use. It could be that we do other actions. At some point, there could be a request for the city to ask a court for a cease and desist to say, all right, you have to stop operating. And we stop supplying water, power, whatever it is that can happen through the laws. But everything is just through the legal process at that point.
Or they could never comply and nobody could ever complain like all the other code violations,
Well,
right?
I would say that everybody has the right to defend what they're doing and come through the right channels and present that evidence. The city could present their evidence and have the courts decide what's going on. So fortunately, I don't think we'll ever get to that point. I think we have actors that want to be very good, and I think we're putting in place an zoning ordinance as well as other ordinances that will help mitigate these risks the best we can. That's our goal and our hope for our community.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, I would like to make a motion. Okay. I would like to make a motion to accept, let me figure out how to word this, to accept the recommendations in this packet with the exceptions of a 200-foot setback for any abutting, if the data center abuts any residential zoned property or used parcel in or outside of the city limits, so 200 foot, otherwise it would follow the as presented, which I believe is whatever is presented. I'm not gonna mess that up. And then that we change the wording in here for fencing to say that it is maybe at the discretion of the planning commission in the conditional use, or however legal needs to, you know, word that. So everything is the same except for changing the setback to 200 feet abutting residential, and then the fencing, that we may require fencing dependent on the site plan to be determined in the conditional use. Whew. That's my motion. And I won't say it again.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do y'all have any comment on the motion? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Now it's up to the city council. Okay. With that, we'll go into the planning director's report. So Aaron?
Yes, I have 27 items to go over.
And, yeah, he's provided lunch.
No, I just want to remind, just as we mentioned briefly, that Wednesday evening, there will be a town hall at the McNeese Convention Center, starting, I believe, at 5:30. That will talk about data centers. There will be a data center representative there. There will be city staff there, and it's an official meeting of city council that will be hearing those items. There's no actions being taken, but it is a town hall and listening and hearing what people have to say. Okay.
And when is the cutoff for comments on that, Aaron? Do you know?
I am not sure, but I would get on our city website, sanangelo.gov, and take a look at that and see if where and how to. There is a data center link right on the very front page that has lots of information. I believe you go there. That's where you can look at submitting a question for consideration. Go from there. Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's over Friday, okay.
They can sign up for public comment.
You can still sign up for public comment.
Okay.
So you still can go and do public comment. Thank y'all for that clarification. I was not aware of that. So, other than that, I don't have anything else to present this morning.
I do have one thing. We do not have the joint meeting tomorrow, so do not show up tomorrow.
But you still can.
I mean, you can still show up at city council. We are requesting the joint meeting be moved to May 19th.
Okay. So if that's all Aaron has there, follow-up and administrative issues. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is scheduled to begin on Monday, May 18th, 2026 at 9 a.m. in the East Mezzanine of the City Hall at 72 West College Avenue, as well as the special meeting the day after on the 19th. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye.